Paris-Dakar 2001 is actually Arras-Dakar, as the start will take place some 120 miles to the north of France's capital city. Now in its 24th year, the Dakar Rally still has an aura like no other motorsport event on the planet, producing enormous emotions poles apart for everyone involved in the event, from rider to driver. So this is looking back to last night in the town of Arras towards the north of France, some 120 miles north of Paris itself. In the town square, some 18,000 people saw the defending motorcycle champion on the Dakar, Fabrizio Mioni from Tuscany in Italy, being seen off by Hubert Auriol, a winner himself, of course, on bikes and in cars. Then we, of course, saw Jordi Arcarons, Tugavado, South Africa's Alfie Cox with the Gauloise KTM, and France's hero, Richard Sanct, a two-time winner. He didn't get to the finish last year. He'll be hoping for good stuff this year. So will Giovanni Sala. He is teammate to Mioni on the twin. Kari Tiernen from Finland, smiling as ever. And then Nani Roma and Cyril Desprez, the young Frenchman. All of the emotions beginning to come to the fore as we see number 171, the quad of South African Wikus van der Venter, with his Bombardier quad coming over the starting ramp. Hubert Auriol shaking everybody's hand. And after the starting ramp, the motorcycles, the cars and the trucks had to find their way somehow through the enormous crowd that had gathered in Arras. The popularity of the Dakar quite breathtaking. However, but for motorcycle number 150, Serge Dugas, he was in all sorts of trouble a mere 800 meters after the start, when he ran into some fuel problems. After looking around the bike and then actually getting some help of some friendly and knowledgeable spectators, even know the names of some of them, so he had to do the courtesies and find out that the gentleman with the white cap was called Bertrand. And then he had to go for the big kick. Didn't want to drain the battery, so went for the kickstart, and so the first person to driver, mechanic to journalist. Running from the 28th of December through to the 13th of January 2002, the route comprises of some 14 stages through 5 countries of over 10,000 kilometers. Initially in France, and then moving over to Madrid for the very first time, then down, crossing the Straits of Gibraltar into Morocco. 3 stages in Morocco, followed by 6 stages in Mauritania, including the rest day on the 6th of January. The last 2 stages are in Senegal, before the finish of the Dakar on the 13th of January. Kicking off from Arras in the north of France, the first road section takes the cruise down to Châteauroux. On the evening of the 28th of December, a road section of some 441 kilometers. Scrutineering kicked off the preparations for the event, starting on Boxing Day, the 26th of December, and also on the 27th as well. An enormous amount of work being put in by the organising body for the Dakar Rally to check everybody, motorcycle and truck and cars and competitors, checking their distress beacons, and some teams getting well into the spirit. A final farewell with loved ones for many people. And even Heinz Kinnegartner putting the finishing touches on the brand new KTM. Thousands of people turned out to see the scrutineering and to catch up with the crews, with the riders, with the drivers. Fabrizio Mioni, winner in 2001, the Italian signing many autographs in Arras, riding a brand new V-twin machine this year. He says it's a lot harder to ride, a bit more of maybe even a dangerous machine, but
è un pochino più
pericolosa,
un pochino anche più faticosa, ma quando si decide di accelerare l'importante è farlo, perché la moto effettivamente in quel caso lì, quando vuoi andare al massimo, la moto ti asseconda.
He is in the KTM factory team alongside fellow Italian Giovanni Sala, riding the 950cc twin. What about the singles? Well, in the Gauloise KTM squad, we have Richard Sank, Cyril Desprez, Alfie Cox and Jean Brucy.
I think we have the best team, myself, because we have one rider, Jean Brucy, to look for us, and the Spanish team and the Italian team have nobody. So I think for the Dakar, it's very important to have somebody looking for your shoulder every day, and I'm very happy, and I think we wait for a few days into the rally before we make a, I don't know what you call it, maybe maximum attack.
Il y a beaucoup de KTM, je pense que la course va être
Richard Sank saying it's going to be very, very close, particularly with me on the single. South Africa's Alfie Cox, he's on his familiar single.
Casco.
Whilst former BMW rider last year, Spaniard Nani Roma. Now, he retired last year when he fell off just before the rest day, broke his leg. But he said it's a very good team in which I'm in, the Repsol team. I've got a lot of friends, particularly in Jordi Arcaruns, and I believe I've got the best people around me as a team to go on and win. That's very important. So Nani Roma, Jordi Arcaruns, Isidre Esteve, and also Carlos de Gavado in the Repsol YPF Telefonica Movistar KTM team. But what of the others? Well, there's Deutsche Post with Kari Tienen and Andrea Meyer, and also Didier Puy alongside Frédéric Moncassin and Francois Flick with the German prepared Touratech KTM squad. PG Lundmark, he's moved from a KTM onto a Boxer twin BMW. He says he wants more power. He's certainly going to get it. However, everyone has to keep their fingers crossed.
This summer, what was your impression after this?
Really sad. It was a great guy, and you know, last year I drive KTM and I ended up without fuel when it was 35 kilometers left, and all the KTM guys, they just boom, blow away. And Deacon come and he stopped and say, "Oh, PG, you need some fuel," and he give me, and I said, "I promise you I give you back, but it's not possible now." Really like the guy.
Richard Sank saying, "Well, I heard about it. I was shocked. He was a friend. We did 2 seasons together at BMW, and he had a real sense of humour. Always happy and always a pleasure to be with him in the evening at the bivouac. It's a shame for the sport in general. We lost a real friend. I think of him even now.
C'est difficile pour le sport de la moto, parce qu'on a perdu un grand copain, et c'est vrai qu'il m'arrive souvent d'y penser à lui.
So this is the first Dakar without British rider John Deacon, who lost his life last summer whilst on the Masters Rally in Syria. The 39-year-old works BMW rider was a multiple British Enduro champion who turned his hand to the Dakar for the first time in 97 before finishing 6th in 99 and 6th last year and the best non-KTM in 2001. He worked tirelessly to promote the Dakar Rally within the UK and was Britain's leading motorcycle rally raid rider. Loyal to his region of Saltash in Cornwall, he leaves a wife and 2 children to whom we all extend our sympathies. Many of his competitors will miss Deacon's competitive nature this year. Winner of the Dakar in 2001 in the motorbike section was Italian master Fabrizio Mioni. 2 wheels very much part of his life. Having turned a professional rider for KTM in 1997, he lives in the village of Castiglione Fiorentino, just to the south of Florence in Tuscany, Italy.
Abitare in Toscana e in particolare a Castiglione Fiorentino, una piccola cittadina, a me aiuta tantissimo. Aiuta tanto sul piano fisico perché anche allenarsi qua è di aiuto per il clima che durante l'anno è sempre più o meno sempre buono, e in più aiuta sul piano psicologico perché ovviamente dà l'aiuto necessario, la concentrazione che occorre avere.
Mioni made his debut on the Dakar in 92 as an amateur, achieving 3-stage victories. But on the KTM Works bike, he took the Austrian-built machine to victories in the Rally of Egypt, Tunisia, Dubai and on the Master. Practicing in the hills near his home, Fabrizio has a brand new bike for this year, the V-Twin 950cc KTM LC8. More power, but bigger.
La bicilindrica è una moto che è più grande, più pesante, però ha anche tantissimi cavalli. Di conseguenza si sfrutta, si riesce ad andare più forte che con il monocilindrico quando il percorso è veloce, soprattutto nella sabbia, nel deserto aperto, quando ci sono pochi ostacoli. Al contrario, il monocilindrico è una moto oramai testatissima che va bene un po' dappertutto, soprattutto nei passaggi tecnici, nelle pietre, nelle montagne e nel deserto quando ci sono dei passaggi molto difficili e lenti nella sabbia.
The battle will certainly between Mioni and the single-cylinder KTM this year, similar to the 660cc LC4 that he took to victory last year. He and fellow Italian Giovanni Sala will be the only riders on the brand new Twin.
Senz'altro ancora mi sento la voglia dentro di correre, di fare bene, è nel mio carattere di dare il massimo, anche quando vado ad allenarmi in moto o in bicicletta o in palestra do sempre il massimo perché proprio fa parte di me fare questo, quindi a maggior ragione lo farò sulla Dakar e cercherò di fare come sempre perché è anche il modo per me più divertente di correre.
Ever away on rallies, Mioni enjoys the home life and being able to spend time with his wife Eleanor and his son John. Fitness is everything whilst riding the terribly physically demanding machines, but he even allowed himself a little Parma ham over the Christmas period. So how does his wife view it all whilst he's away on the rallies?
Certamente in determinate situazioni viene più fuori ancora l'uomo, viene fuori la tua forza interiore, perché la tua forza viene dal fatto che a te piace tantissimo andare con la moto, sei un appassionato di moto e quindi te quando sei sulla moto, a parte i primi giorni che magari hai della tensione addosso, però dopo mi sembri nato sopra la moto, mi sembri proprio un tutt'uno sempre con la moto e quindi ti scopro felice. Io sopra la moto a te ti scopro ancora più felice che a casa, perché so che è la tua grande passione, perché te hai fatto della moto la tua vita quasi.
Emotions were high at the finish last year for the Mioni family. Expect him to want more of the same this time around by the time we reach the shores of Lac Rose. So then, day 2 of Dakar 02. Châteauroux to Narbonne, a road section of some 82 kilometres after the overnight halt. Then a short stage of some 6 kilometres at La Souterraine. And then a massive 530-kilometre road section down south to Narbonne itself, making a total of 618. So many of the riders arrived at the start of the stage this morning. Very, very cold indeed, and you can see the conditions, an absolute quagmire. Well, when the recce and the route was planned, maybe even some 12 months ago or even 18 months ago, I bet you they didn't quite plan on this amount of rain. And some people, these poor motorcycle riders, your heart really does have to go out to them, falling already. If they weren't wet enough and cold enough, they were certainly then muddy enough. Mike Exton's there from the UK, battling through with his Husserberg. Some of the riders at the start hugging the exhausts, hugging the crankcases to try and warm their hands up even after the 82-kilometre road section, which is some 50 miles in length. And after the stage, as you can see, the results of the mud. However, it was motorcycle number 139 who came out on top. Here he is, just about to hand his time card in, and it's Pierre Quinonero on his KTM, entered under the Dakar Jura banner. Now, the Jura is a region of France with some small rolling hills, and there's a 2-man motorcycle team. And Pierre, he actually blitzed the opposition to finish first on today's stage. And it really does prove that sometimes the underdogs really can win a stage over the Dakar against the professionals. He'll be certainly grateful for the prize money. And let us not forget, ladies and gents, on a production bike, Kari Tiernan, 6-time world enduro champion, second on the stage, some 5 seconds back of the winner. It has to be said that the motorcycles did run in reverse order, so Tiernan running quite a way behind Pierre Quinonero, who was, as I say, motorcycle number 139. Third on the stage and getting a very luminous orange Repsol KTM Dirty very quickly. Nani Roma, third on the stage. He was 15 seconds back of the winner and a 10 back of Tiernan, taking things very steadily indeed, as you can see through the corners. Nani Roma, former BMW Works rider last year, unfortunately broke his leg just before the rest day in Attar on the 2001 edition. Fourth on the stage today, Frenchman Cyril Desprez, 16 seconds back of the winner, only 4 back of Nani Roma. Winner of a stage on last year's Dakar, late in the event. The young pro from France, the first of the Gauloise riders today. Let us not forget that he won the recent UAE Marlborough Desert Challenge only just a couple of weeks back in November. Fifth today was the teammate of the winner. Now this is Celso Corraro on another KTM, teammate in the same Jura Dakar squad. So finishing fifth today, certainly a good scalp. Jean Broussy from France, the second of the KTM Gauloise sponsored machines. Jean Broussy finishing 33 seconds back with a time of 6 minutes 45. Francois Flick on the German-run Touratech 650 rally machine, lives in the local region, so he was very keen indeed to put up a show for his local crowd. Number 87, Christophe Maillon, the highest Honda rider on today's stage with his 650 XR. Maillon finishing in 8th position. Flick and Broussy, by the way, dead heating. Here is Eric Verhoef, the Dutchman. And then we move on to Esteve Pujol. Verhoef in 9th, Pujol finishing in 10th position with his Repsol machine. But what about Mioni, the defending champion? He was back in 16th position, just 1 place ahead of Alfie Cox, who was cold but soldiered through. So then, the results. What a shock for Pierre Quinonero, 6 minutes 12, finishing 5 ahead of Tiernan, Roma, Desprez and Guerrara. Nani Roma saying to ride that sort of stage you really have to choose a very good line through the corners. It's not easy to see that line. I chose wide lines, but I'm not an expert in these muddy conditions. Many others are better at it. Cécile Desprez, he says we had a great deal of fun on this very slippery stage, but it's okay for me.
C'est sympa, on a voulu faire, on a fait un petit peu de spectacle et les gens qui ont attendu depuis ce matin doivent être contents quand même.
The question, what happened in the middle of the stage? He says that I made a little mistake and my engine stopped, so I had to restart the bike. Took me a little time, but now it's okay. Okay then, on to the finish. Actually in the town of Narbonne, down in Provence, right down in the south of France, and even at 10 o'clock at night, thousands and thousands of people were there to see South Africa's Alfie Cox come over the finishing ramp after a long day in the saddle. Smiling as always was Alfie, and after the 530-kilometre road section, no bigger smile than that on the face of Pierre Quinareno on his KTM, who was victorious on the stage. So that was yesterday. What about today? Day 3 of Dakar 2002. The stage from Narbonne with a short road section of 21 kilometres down to Château Las Tours, same place as we went last year, and then an enormous road section, 850 kilometres around the outskirts of Barcelona onto the capital city of Spain, Madrid. Many of the spectators had arrived at Château Las Tours before sunrise, and what a sunrise it was. Not many people, though, having a chance to really savour the brilliant, brilliant view. And talk about mud to dust, rags to riches. You can't believe it, can you? The deep, muddy conditions of yesterday, and then the dust of Africa is already in France on the second competitive stage of Dakar 02. A 35-kilometre stage at Château Las Tours, almost catching some people out early on in the twisty sections. And the roads winding their way around a vineyard, which is actually owned by a former Dakar runner and motorsport enthusiast. Quickest on the stage, number 6, with the Gauloise KTM, the hero of French motorcycle rally raiding, Richard Sanct. Certainly was a good stage for him, although he was quite surprised that it was dry actually on the stage. He was overwhelmed with the amount of people along the 35 kilometres, but he was, of course, naturally pleased to have such a following cheering him on. He caught 2 other riders on the stage, and he struggled to get past them. The motorcycle riders going off at 2-minute intervals, so he had a good day. He was happy to attack without so much risk, of course, as it was involved yesterday through the mud. Right then, we move on to number 9. This is Nani Roma, 3rd on the stage, 5 seconds back of winner Richard Sanct. However, he is going to lead the Dakar in the motorcycle section coming out of Château Las Tours into Madrid, his home country, of course. Now we move on to number 10. This is Cyril Desprez. He was 2nd on the stage, and he is the equal leader of the Dakar, dead level with Roma. He passed 3 motorcycles on the stage, and he enjoyed his ride. On to Kari Tiernan, 4th on the stage for the 7-time World Enduro champion. Now, he fitted some very, very soft motocross tyres indeed, and he was expecting to really ruin the rear by the time he got to the finish, and I can tell you that he pretty well nearly did. And the way that he saved that rear was to try to put some of his body weight over the front of the machine rather than put it on the back and obviously wear that rear out. Put it on the rear of the bike rather than on the front, because then, of course, he'd spin up the rear. On to number 4, Esteve Puyol, 5th on the stage. A good day for him as he thrashed through the vineyard. Esteve now up to 5th overall. What about the quads? Well, they had a a dusty day through the conditions. And interesting to see the yellow machine here, number 173. He's got a CBR 900 Fireblade engine in there, producing 132 brake horsepower. Think about that when you're in the desert. And also a special Chateau Las Tours wine for the winner of yesterday's stage, Pierre Quinonero. He had a very small sip at the beginning, not too much of course. And he went on to have a good day through the stage, finishing in 12th position on his KTM. Good day for a privateer, both yesterday and today. On to, this is Giovanni Sala, number 7 on the bike, 7th on the stage. He found it difficult to change his line through the corners, both yesterday in the mud and in the slippery conditions today, of course, with that extra weight of the twin. South Africa's Alfie Cox, 8th on the stage. He was worried about oil pressure. The team fitted an extra gauge just in case they had a faulty reading off the bike. Number 1, Mioni, 9th today, level pegging with Mark Coma on the stage. Not feeling too great was Mioni today, a little ill. And of course he said afterwards he could really barely use half of the power out of the V-twin. The V-twin KTM producing well over 100 brake. And he was only using, obviously, some 50 brake. On to Mark Coma of Spain. 9th equal. And this is Mioni and Arcarons at the end of the stage. And Mioni saying, listen, the rocks, they were the size of bowling balls. It was as if we were down a bowling alley.
Io pensavo questo. E dico, ma se io cado, mi ammazzo io, ma ne ammazzo.
No, il pubblico sta loco.
Sì, perché in quella dritta, a 150, come fa le persone a stare là?
Unbelievable. This is Cyril Desprez going over to meet his mum. She's just asking him whether or not he's eating well and going to bed early. So then, Richard Sankt leads the Dakar in the motorcycle section, 4 seconds ahead of Desprez, Roma, Tiernan from Finland, and Puyol from Spain. Roma leading overall, Desprez dead level, Tiernan, Sankt, and Esteve Puyol. Richard Sankt saying that after the mud of yesterday, we obviously found a dry stage today. Although it was very windy, it was a problem at times when we were in the bowl, down in the bottom of the bowl. Very nice stage, a lot of people. It's fun because in maybe 2 days' time, there'll hardly be anybody cheering us on the side of the stage. Here's Nani Roma, very good stage, he reports here. Some of my friends have taken a short trip up the motorway from Spain to see me battling here. But I didn't take too much of a risk, and I enjoyed the stage. Beautiful stage. It really is now the beginning of the Dakar, and I'm content.
It was quite difficult stage because same time you have to drive carefully and also quick, and a lot of stones, of course, but I did okay. I mean, no mistakes, and that's what I was looking for.
"29-year-old Juan, nicknamed Nani Roma from Spain, is on his 7th Dakar rally now and will surely battle at the top of the order on his Repsol KTM. This is him in training a couple of weeks ago, and he's certainly getting some air. And it even happens to the best of them.
Sí, es verdad, porque yo cuando voy
cansado, a rider who will have, for example, the qualities.
Cuando empiezas sobre todo el Dakar, pues a no conducir bien sobre la moto, y por lo tanto cuando mejor estés, mejor llegas y menos errores cometes y menos peligro hay, ¿no? Porque cuando vas por pistas en África son peligrosas, y si te desconcentras y si no vas lo suficientemente bien agarrado o no conduces lo suficientemente bien, pues puedes cometer errores graves que te pueden hacer caer y perder la carrera, ¿no?
Training, of course, very much a part of a professional rider's regime nowadays. It's not just a case of jumping on the bike, donning the helmet and going off. And in the gym and on the rowing machine, you've got to get a sweat up and build those muscles up.
Bueno, pues ahora estamos haciendo esta máquina que es para...
Last year, I damaged and broke the ligaments in my right leg, just about here. And it's taken me all of 12 months to build up the strength in those ligaments once more. Otherwise, I will not be able to stand on two legs properly and move my weight around the bike when I'm on the stages. Also in the pool, exercising the cardiovascular areas in every which way. Still even looking every part a professional swimmer, never mind a rally raid rider. Nani's saying the pool is obviously part of my regime as well. And I'm actually not really a very good swimmer, but I have to train every part of my body, try out all of the muscles, and the pool helps me in that way. Now 5 kilometers away, he marches into the house of Jordi Arcarons. Not quite the little and large show from Spain, but the large and large show with regards to rally raiding. Nani's saying a rider who will have the qualities of Jordi and I will be a brilliant rider. Nowadays we're in the same team, and for me his experience is very important because every day he can help me in studying the stage of a rally with me. I've done only 6 Dakars, and there are a lot of places that I still have never seen. Jordi's saying, I always give a couple of briefings every day for Nani. Well, maybe one big one at the beginning of the rally and then another one at the halfway point of the rally, for example, in Atar. My problem on this rally is the first part. After that, after Atar, I know what I'm doing and I reckon I'll get to the finish. So on to today's stage. From Madrid down into Africa itself. Short road section to the very short stage. We're coming to that in a moment. And then look at that, 914 kilometers of road section on 2 continents, let us not forget. Bet you that may never happen again. All the way down to Rabat after the short boat trip. Atmosphere at the start of the stage was jovial and serious. Look at the sun, some people were saying. Well, hardly, as Richard Sankt and Nani Roma tried to keep their hands warm whilst they waited for the green lights. Not a good start for one of the quads, though. He ran into trouble immediately with a flat battery and had to call upon the services of the official vehicle alongside the track there from the Spanish authorities.
Tenemos problemas, no sabemos si de eléctricos o de gasolina.
The competitor's saying we've either got an electrical problem or we've got a fuel problem. We're obviously going to have to look into it, but we've got the start of the stage in a moment and we can only try and find out what the problem is. Jose Manuel Perez, local of course, and going to the commissaires.
The lights and the gym. In case of not doing the special, which is the penalty?
Reading of the rule books done right up until the very start of the stage. But eventually everything got sorted. Here's Nani Roma, local of course, Spanish hero. He says, I don't really like to ride in these conditions. We only, of course, have to do it for the people. We get dirty, the bikes get dirty, but the real race is in Africa. And this is why Nani Roma was really not looking forward to today's stage. Only 6 kilometers, that's about 4 miles in length, but look at this. It wasn't a case of mud, glorious mud. It was almost a case of a bit of chocolate mousse that was left over from Christmas. Well then, here is the quad rider from South Africa, Wikus van der Venter, who had a brilliant day on his machine, coming home in 10th overall. Didn't do the Dakar last year, he's with us this year. Other people were not so lucky. People were falling everywhere. Well, Ernest Hemingway may have called Madrid the capital of the world. It was the capital of rally raiding today as the Dakar visited town, and it was from one extreme to the other with regards to the weather conditions. 2 days ago we had similar conditions at La Souterraine in the middle of France. Yesterday down in the south of France there was actually a dust problem holding many people up. And you can't believe it, the conditions have turned the tables upon themselves, and it's back to the mud. It may be amusing to look at this from the outside, but not when you realise that these competitors have another, pick a figure, 8,500 kilometres still to do before they get to Dakar. Meanwhile, with the front runners, it was Nani Roma who was quickest on the stage with his Repsol YPF Telefonica single-cylinder KTM. The number 9 rider, resident near Barcelona, but of course with that Spanish passport, happy to compete and jump for joy in front of his capital's fans. Got through the stage and leads now overall the Dakar 2002. He said he was quite surprised by the result as he rode relatively slowly, but the time really did catch up on him. What about Richard Sainz? Cyril Desprez joked that they had been led in a navigational circle by the organisers and they had all returned back to La Souterraine. He said it was like running a marathon in Wellington boots. Felt as if the bike weighed some 250 kilograms. Number 8 from Finland, Kari Tiernen. He did the biggest jump of them all. He was second on the stage and he's third overall. Cyril Desprez, third on the stage. On to number 6, Richard Sainz. He finishes the Dakar today in 4th position overall, after finishing 6th on the stage. He says it's all part of the game to do these stages. Disappointed that it was wet for the fans though. The mud really did put paid to that. Number 4, this is Isidre Esteve Pujol, teammate to Nani Roma, getting stuck in as the fans were as well. Many thousands of fans milling to the 6-kilometre stage on the outskirts of Madrid well before dawn this morning, even though the wet conditions were very inhospitable at times. The professional riders keeping things very professional indeed. Number 23, Mark Comer. He's riding the Suzuki. Now, he finished the stage in 7th position, giving away 31 seconds to the winner, Roma. On to Giovanni Sala. Remember, he's on the twin, could barely use half that horsepower with the extra weight. On to South Africa's Alfie Cox. I joked with him after the stage that he was the cleanest of them all. He said, well, I did try to keep out of the worst of the mud. Always got a sense of humour, has Alfie. A credit he is to professional rally raid riding. Eric Verhoef from the flatlands in the north of Europe, he had a good day. And Fabrizio Mioni, what a way to spend his birthday. The Italian reigning champion of the Dakar, 44 years old today. Not really amused by it all. In fact, he actually swore during a French TV interview about the stage, although it was, of course, in jest. Now, this is one of the other riders coming home. The mud completely actually blocking the rear wheel and it taking 4 or 5 people to push him up to the time control. So that's the stage. Roma winning from Tiernan, Depré, Isidri Esteve, Puyol and Eric Verhoff. Brilliant result for the Dutchman there in 5th. And overall, Roma from Depré, Tiernan in 3rd, Sankt in 4th, Esteve, Puyol in 5th. Tiernan in Suomi saying here, he says it was pretty interesting in there and I probably only realise how bad it was now that I've stopped and I can really think about it. Richard Sanks saying the rain, the mud, the dust, it has been nothing but that since the beginning of the Dakar. It was the same at Chateau Las Tours. A pity, as it was good here. It's a good stage, but I'm sure the people would have liked to see us on a dry stage. I hope that there was a show that we put on. And of course, you can fall on a stage such as we have had today and lose 2 minutes, but it was not an issue for me.
Si on assure qu'on perd 1-2 minutes, c'est pas dramatique. La vraie course, elle commence un peu plus tard.
Yeah, look, I try to keep a wide line and stay out of all the big mud, but this is crazy. I mean, this is not the Dakar, but obviously coming to Europe, we have to have these conditions. And from the dust yesterday to all-night rain to an absolute mud bath, it's it's just unbelievable. But now we head on to Morocco and hopefully things can change now.
I saw on the news this morning it was raining in northern Morocco.
Don't tell me this.
I'm serious.
Now, last year it was cold, in the early mornings, but obviously no rain. But, it won't be conditions like this, clay and mud, Oh, well, that's the Dakar.
Well, Happy New Year, everybody. The stage from Rabat into Ereshkigal. A short road section before the 80-kilometre stage, and then 444 kilometres drive to the bivouac further south at Ereshkigal on the southern eastern edge of Morocco. The stage was actually lengthened by another 5 kilometres late last night to avoid a river which was in danger of bursting its banks. Better safe than sorry. So then, crossing the Straits of Gibraltar last night were all of the motorcycle riders. Some of them very, very tired indeed after that monstrous ride down from Madrid to right on the southern tip of Spain. Many of them catching up on very welcome bits of sleep indeed. Alfie Cox having a joke with Luc Alfond. And then the big doors opened and Richard Sankt, just as last year was one of the first riders off the boat and onto terra firma in another continent. And then come daybreak this morning, the motorcycles were on the stage.
Heute Morgen war es ganz witzig.
This is Andrea Meyer. She's saying, well, Happy New Year from PG was not quite what I wanted. He said he was not going to kiss me to celebrate as much because I beat him by a couple of places yesterday. So, all a bit of fun.
Kann sich in Schweden nicht mehr sehen lassen. Heute hat mich überholt. Ich denke mal, morgen für den Geburtstag wird es schon ein Küsschen geben.
Onto the stage, and it was Carlo Dugavado, the Chilean KTM Works Repsol rider, who was quickest through the stage. Did a time of 42 minutes and 38 seconds by the time he got to the final time control. And in fact, even then, when he had been through the time control, he saw a couple of baboons and a couple of monkeys on the side of the road, and he turned back, much to the curiosity of Alfie Cox. Apparently, Dugavado has never seen a baboon before, and he wanted to go back and check. Carrie Tiernan, though, he finished the day still leading the Dakar overall. Although the Finn finished 4th on the stage, he now leads the Dakar by 14 seconds. And he was actually quite glad that Nani Roma had been through the stage first on the road by the virtue of Roma winning the stage at Madrid yesterday. Although Tiernan did have a bit of a fright when he saw a bull on the stage. He might have got away with hitting the odd chicken, but hitting a bull, and I think the bull would win. Hoja Jutavoita, as they would say in Finland. Happy New Year for Carrie Tiernan. Alfie Cox, he is second after today on the Dakar 2002, and second to, of course, Tiernan by those 14 seconds. Said it was a great stage, lots of sand, lots of trees to give an impression of speed when he was really cracking on through the trees, and he said that it was very similar to the stages back home in Swaziland and indeed Botswana. And of course a totally different stage to the mileage that we did to Erishidia last year, when people were having punctures and destroying rims all of the time. Had a lot of fun really sliding the bike around, and he really was grinning ear to ear like a Cheshire cat once he got to the bivouac here at Erishidia this evening. This is the last few 100 yards on the stage from our Wescam, and we can see Arcaron's in all sorts of trouble. Maybe he thought he could cut the corner there, but thinking the better of it on his Repsol YPF KTM, sliding the rear end round, Cox following him, getting on to a bit of tarmac, and then of course managing to get all of the power down and lifting the front as he came into the last 300 metres, past the sign on the right-hand side, and then just in time to get his time card stamped. On to Nani Roma, the winner in Madrid yesterday. He's third overall, but only 15 seconds back of Kari Tiernan, so it's very, very close at the top of the Dakar 2002 after day 5. 3 riders within 15 seconds after we have had an hour and 23 minutes worth of running, so it's still very, very close. On the stage, Nani Roma was 5th quickest, some 3 minutes and 17 seconds back of De Gavado. Now remember that Roma was opening the stage first on the road, and of course it was a little dangerous. He had to give the warning to the animals that were wandering all over the stage, and of course by the time the other riders came through, the animals had dissipated away from the stage itself. On to Cyril Desprez, the Frenchman, 4th overall now after the 5th day, 1 minute and 11 seconds back of Tiernan. Had a lot of fun, he said, on the stage. He said it was like surfing, getting the rear end of the bike really sideways. And even though he may have lost a little time, he reckons that it'll be about right to start tomorrow 10th, because he finished 10th on the stage today. Good way to start the year for Desprez. Another Frenchman passing the prickly pears on the side of the road was French hero Richard Sanct. Overall, he was 6th, so in tune with his number. Sanct mindful that tomorrow is a very important day, and hopefully it is going to be windy tomorrow so that he won't get caught up in anybody's dust. Not a good day for Mioni. Okay, he didn't have any animals in his way, but he had a fuel pickup problem. It was not really firing on the throttle. Similar problem, of course, happened to the KTM single cylinder a couple of years ago. On to Esteve, the Repsol number 4 rider. 8th position for him overall. 2 minutes back of the leader Tiernan, and only 9 seconds back of Mioni. Listen to that twin. As Sala comes past, Sala now 9th overall. Here is Jordi Arcarons, finished 2nd on last year's Dakar, 10th overall after the stage. That is the stage. De Gavado winning from Cox, from Mioni, from Tiernan, and from Nani Roma. And overall, Tiernan 14 ahead of Cox and 15 ahead of Roma. Very close, as I said, at the top 3 there, Desprez and De Gavado.
Bueno, la etapa fue muy rápida.
This is Carlo De Gavado saying a very, very quick stage. It was difficult because of the sand sometimes, and also the mud. The stage, you had a lot of different choices to choose, lots of little options to choose, but fortunately there was no dust. It was good. I overtook some other riders, and it was just as well that there was no dust.
Y yo me imaginé que aquí iba a haber polvo y me iba a perjudicar, pero me ayudó un poco y anduve muy fuerte también.
You had to look at the GPS and the road book, but it's going to be more difficult to concentrate on the riding.
80 kilometers today, very short stage, and exactly like I have at home in the forest with a bit of sand. But you know, it's tomorrow is the long stage, and maybe it was not so clever today to come first, because tomorrow I start first, and I have to make the navigation, and everybody will probably catch me up because it's a 300 or 400 kilometer stage. So maybe it was tactics from the other riders, but I had a good race today, and I'm happy.
Oggi ho avuto un problema con la moto.
Fabrizio Mioni saying, today I had a small problem with my bike. Sometimes the fuel didn't seem to get into the cylinders, and of course the engine then cut. I had to wait a couple of minutes in the stage because of that. This problem is surely not very important, because after that the bike seemed to be okay, but we still need to find a solution for the problem.
In futuro si può ancora ripetere il problema.
So then, what about all of those speeding motorcyclists and indeed some of the cars on the Dakar yesterday towards the bivouac? The organisers had set up a radar trap in one of the villages not far away from the bivouac, and it caught more than a few people out, and some of them, the majority of which, did not realise that they had a penalty of 1 minute per kilometre an hour that they did over a speed of 60 kilometres an hour. And you can see the speed there, 67, 66 kilometres an hour, for example. This motorcycle rider saying, this morning at breakfast we found out that it was a bad day for us yesterday. It's going to be rather expensive because they've all had a fine of 1,000 euros. This rider saying, I don't think it's right. It's a village, okay, but everybody was going at this speed. I really don't understand. If I was 10 or 15 kilometres too fast, I had no impression of that. It's not a real crime. I hope that they let us off.
People going very, very fast with kids and children about, but not if it's just a few well, I know there's 20%, but in a 40k limit, if you're doing perhaps 55k's, you know, on a run down a hill as it was, yeah, maybe it's a little harsh.
Even the leaders of the motorcycle section have got some penalties. Richard Sankt and Giovanni Sala, they've got 29 minutes and 19 minutes respectively as a penalty. And at KTM it's a disappointment. Here is Heinz Kinnegartner. He says, a rule is a rule. But it was a wide road with 4 lanes. It's hard for our first day in Africa. Richard Sankt, of course, has a 29-minute penalty, and for him, essentially, the race is over. Concerning the private entrance, 1,000 euros is an enormous fine. I think that the organisation wins the money with no honesty. Harsh words indeed from the boss of KTM. So what have the organisers got to say? Patrick Zanaroli here saying they all have to pay up within 24 hours, but if a privateer cannot pay, we'll let them pay later. We're not a tax authority. What we want is no accidents on the Dakar. We don't want to win money because all the money is given away to local charities, and there is no problem about funding for TSO. We just don't want any accidents. So then this afternoon, the penalties concerning the cars were also made public, and likewise the drivers were not happy. Stefan Pederhansel, for example, getting a 14-minute penalty, and here he is. When you see your speedo at, say, 60 kilometres, you're going very, very slow. I think it would have been better if they just put a small penalty, but it's too much in terms of time. Jutta Kleinschmidt, defending champion, saying, I got a 3-minute penalty. For me, it's okay, but for Stefan Pederhansel, he's got 14 minutes. And now, he was in front, now he's a little behind. A lot of people are in this situation. It's very hard, not only for the money, but because many people are essentially out of the front running positions of the rally. So then, today's stage in the middle of Morocco, short road section of 56 kilometres and then a stage of 338 kilometres special stage. The first real stage in Africa, in particular the crossing of the Chebi Erg at Mazouga, the highest dune in Morocco. The skies in Africa so pure, as is the Dakar itself. The real Dakar really does get underway, and that massive dune, the Chebi Erg, to be crossed as some of the local wildlife looked on. Winner of the stage, Jordi Arcarons, former winner of the Dakar on his Repsol YPF KTM, winning the stage in 3 hours, 40 minutes and 58 seconds, some 48 seconds ahead of the rest of the field. Arcarons overall in 3rd position. Nani Roma second on the stage, but first overall for him. He had a lot of dust, and after a river crossing he managed to get past Cox and Tiernan, but then he sat behind De Gavado. Here we are with Frédéric Moncassin on board with him, following his progress through the dunes and past many of the spectators who are out on the stage today. Really throwing the bike around and getting himself a little bit more worn out little by little. But of course many people were caught out by the jumps on board with him going over that little jump there. Many people were caught out by them, and in the end it came a little too close to home for what Frédéric would like. Here we see the rear, the swing arm completely broken, the aluminium just sheared through. Hubert Auriol looking on, and Moncassin being able to move the left-hand side of the swing arm. It's literally being held on by a thread, and indeed the right-hand side as well. If you look to the right-hand side of that white sticker, you can see it's broken away just to the left-hand side of the weld, and in the end the left-hand side just comes off in his hand. Kari Tiernan from Finland, 3rd on the stage, 2nd overall. Good position for the Finn. He really did keep out of the way of the others today. He said to me this evening at the bivouac, I'm not really one to fight man on man. He stayed out of the dust of many other people. Although he did make a few big jumps. He went very high at one point, caught up in some dust. He nearly went head over heels. On to Alfie Cox. Cox, 5th on the stage today, happy to put a bit of time on Sankt, but of course he didn't really know the full effect of Sankt's 29-minute penalty. Knew the stage from previous Dakars and also the Atlas Rally. Fast and safe. Cox pulling 186 clicks at one point, 115 miles an hour. Mioni, defending champion, 4th on the stage, 5th overall. His rear tyre was really the most worn out of all of the KTM riders today. And he also wore a big hole in his left thumb where he scrolls the road book up and down on the left-hand side of the bars. So they're going to get that mended this evening. He also had that fuel filter changed from yesterday's problem. De Gavado didn't win the stage, but said it was hard to lead the stage on the road. It was hard, it was slippery. He was very lucky indeed because he had a big rip in his tyre. Richard Sankt, blue number 6, good stage, but of course he didn't have his mind on the stage with those 29 minutes of penalty hanging over his head. Rumour this evening emanating from the mouth of Richard Sankt that he says, if they put the penalty on me, I'll pull out of the rally. Cyril Desprez, 9th on the stage, 8th overall. He caught Sala on the stage, but Cyril had a small oil leak, and then later he dropped the bike, but only momentarily. Over 1 dune, over 2, locking the rear wheel to just kill a bit of speed until he's right over the crest of the dune. Esteve Puyol, 8th on the stage today, 9th overall. Sala, very disappointed to wake up this morning with the news of his penalty from speeding yesterday evening. 19 minutes he's got. He reckons that they misidentified his machine. And here is Francois Flick going through the ditch, and that hurt. Arcarons winning the stage from Roma, from Tiernan, from Mioni and Alfie Cox. Overall, Roma from Tiernan, from Arcarons, Cox and Mioni.
Bien, hasta aquí el control de paso. La verdad es que me ha ido muy bien. He ido pasando.
Arcaron's here talking after the stage. Arcaron's winning today's stage of 338 kilometers.
Voy con esa estela y creo que he recuperado tiempo al piloto de delante y a ver si continúa así durante la etapa.
Bueno, pues bien, hay mucho polvo y ostras.
Nani Roma leading the Dakar this evening after stage 6. He wasn't happy with Alfie Cox, and they had actually a bit of an argument come the end of the stage, but I think they've buried it now. Here we have Kari Tiernen in finish, saying that he did very many jumps, one of which was extremely high, real Supercross style, but then he got caught up in some dust and very, very nearly fell off his machine. He was very lucky indeed.
Yeah, it's dusty like last year, and if you're not in front, it's a problem. And lucky Carlos and I have been leading the way, trying to make more dust for the other riders. But I think to stay in front, keep the dust to your advantage, and maybe you'll have a good day today.
One of the key words of the day is speed.
Yeah, it's quite fast today, but I think if you don't take too much risk, it should be okay. It is a little bit fast, but you know, Morocco, the stones, it always makes it feel like it's much faster.
So then, today's stage from Ouarzazate to Tantan. 176 kilometers, 351 of which are then undertaken in some very, very difficult terrain indeed, covering 3 passage controls and then another long road section to Tantan itself near the Atlantic. It was a cold start this morning for the riders. A temperature of some 3 degrees after having spent the overnight sleep in the bivouac at a height of some 1,153 meters in altitude. Once they got going though, the sun rose over the horizon, but it was not a good day at all for young Frenchman Cyril Desprez, recent winner of the Marlborough UAE Desert Challenge. He fell off his Gauloise KTM and he injured his hip. He's out of the rally, but here once back in the medical tent he says, my roadbook scroller was broken, so essentially he's riding blind, and I hit a hole, big hole, and I just went straight over the top. However, I did manage to phone my mother and father, at least to tell them that I am okay. Not a good day also in another part of the KTM camp. Finland's Kari Tiernen just shaking his hands and just saying, what can I do? Look at that front wheel, absolutely anything but round is that front wheel. And the man, of course, who started the day second overall, lost an enormous amount of time. Tiernen eventually getting to the finish, having lost over an hour to the winning motorcycle rider, as the rest of the field just sped past. There is no worse a sight for a Rally Raid rider to see or hear, is a rider blatting past. But at least teammate Jean Brucy stopped and sacrificed his front wheel for his teammate Kari Tiernen. And as Kari would say in the finish, kiitos hyvä. And off he goes on his way. However, he then, of course, had to battle back through the dust, past the riders, some of which he had already passed. However, it was not over then. By the time he got to the refueling stop, not only had the rear gone, but also the mousse had completely disintegrated. That was at kilometre number 206. Meanwhile, winner of the stage, once more, Carlo de Govado on his Repsol KTM, 3 hours and 33 minutes. He said that he went deliberately fast today to try and gain time on the others because he knows tomorrow's going to be difficult. Second on the stage, Esteve Puyol said it was hard on the wheels today. he had his moose inside his front wheel inflate at about the halfway point. Nani Roma, number 9, third on the stage. He made it a Repsol KTM 1, 2 and 3. He said it was okay for him today in the greater scheme of things, the last real Moroccan stage, as of course tomorrow it really gets going. The rocks really were giving people a hammering. Hardly anybody got away today without damaging the front wheel. Alfie Cox avoiding the camels. He said he recognised much of the stage today from last year, which of course served him well. Took a big knock on the front wheel and he had to retighten the spokes at a controlled point, at the refuel, together with all of the others. He was just annoyed that the road book was really not very accurate. Richard Sanks, 5th on the stage. Of course, with that penalty of 29 minutes now halved to 14.5 minutes after last night. He found it difficult, not only for him, but for the bike. Talking about difficult bikes, what about riding this big V-twin? Fabrizio Mioni, 6th on the stage. He was really chewing up that rear tyre, and more importantly than that, the whole team were looking very concerned at the engine at service here this evening. Sala was 7th, and Jordi Arcarons was 8th on the stage. However, let us not forget that those V-twins will really be getting into their element tomorrow when we get into the less technical and smoother stages. Eric Bernard from France on his quasi-works, or should you say non-works KTM, 9th for him today. And PG Lundmark growling his way through the desert. Our first real look at him on his Boxer twin BMW. On board with Paulo Marques from Portugal.
Típica do sul de Marrocos. Rápida com pedra. Tenho vontade realmente de ficar entre os melhores. Claro que tem que ter muita atenção, como aqui, por exemplo. Pode ser a morte do artista.
So then, de Gavado from Esteve Puyol, Roma, Cox and Richard Sanks. Just a little over than 4 minutes after 3.5 hours of running on some very, very difficult stage.
La etapa hoy día fue muy rápida.
The winner, de Gavado, saying the stage today was very, very quick. There are lots of ruts and tracks which you could take, which made the navigation very, very difficult. It was a very stony stage, and then we had to just hold back a little. And I finished very close to Nani Roma. That's on the road, of course. Esteve Puyol saying the stage was extremely rocky, extremely stony and dangerous. First, I made time on the leaders, and in the second part I then went quicker because we were not far to go before the finish. The bike was okay, and I finished at a higher speed. Nani Roma saying, I didn't race to my maximum because I was in front. We were quick, but still careful and obviously concentrating very hard because this stage is very dangerous with a lot of stones and a lot of holes. It's just a stage that can hurt you, not on which you can win time.
Porque creo que cada día van pasando cosas, hoy Tiana le ha pasado cosas y al final se va a montar un grupo que es allí donde sabré al menos a quién atacar, porque hoy están todos atacando y no puedes estar cada día con 10 pilotos.
Yeah, today, you know, I remember last year breaking the wheel on this similar stage, and going to the refuel, I had already made a big dent and all the spokes were loose, so I had to fix the front wheel. And today I think I just wanted to look after the bike and the back tire, because the moose is a big problem in the stones, and just to get to the finish and try to get out of Morocco, because it's so dangerous here for the motorcycle. So I'm happy for today. Unfortunately I would have come second, but I was in the dust of Mioni. He's held me up the whole day, and Roma's beaten me by 5 seconds for second. But hey, I'm happy, third place. And you know, Kari Tiernan with a broken wheel, he's out from the overalls now. So I move up one now, and we just take it slowly every day, catch the monkey.
Olá, bom dia.
Sou Paulo Marques, vou fazer o Dakar 2002.
Hello, I'm Paulo Marques. I'm a rally raid biker and I'm preparing for the Dakar. And my bike is through here, so if you'd like to follow me, please. Paulo Marques is the 11-time Enduro champion of Portugal, and we're with him, and here he says, the bike with which I'm going to do the rally this year is a KTM 650 Rally. I bought it from the official Portuguese importer, and it's been built especially for the Dakar. It's very similar to the factory KTMs, which will be on the rally once more this year.
Primeiros números, pelo menos, porque eu já vi, praticamente são todas motos idênticas a esta, à exceção das duas bicilíndricas da própria fábrica.
Going from the workshop where we saw him a moment ago, it's not too far a ride for Paulo to go home.
Maintenant, on va parler avec ma famille. Lisa.
He's done it 8 times, including winning a stage in '97, before he retired, unfortunately, last year, when 8th overall.
Principalmente pela aventura, pela experiência que já tive e realmente quero colocá-la em prática. São objetivos que a gente tem na vida, chegar mais longe.
I've done it 8 times, and my best was a finish in '97 when I was 8th. Here his wife says, every time he goes out on the rallies, I feel nervous, especially when I see him on TV. I hope he will get to Dakar this year and, of course, get a good finish. Now, Paulo, he has a Honda dealership, something that he has done for many years. But this year, after the strength of KTM in Dakar 01, he has opted for one of the Austrian machines. However, it's not just the power of the bike that is everything, it's the power of the rider. He says physical condition is very important when you need to be on top of a bike that's weighing some 265 kilograms and traveling at some 180 kilometers an hour. In the meantime, I have to work, so I'll see you all in the swimming pool in Dakar. Well, these images from Tantan, the stop for last night. Many people, of course, not having much rest before leaving early. This rider's saying we had 8 hours to rest and for our repairs, so we'll try and do our repairs as fast as possible in order to get some sleep. And as everybody was taking out the old road book, maybe some of them only having arrived at the bivouac at, for example, 6 o'clock in the evening, only to leave at, for example, 2 o'clock in the morning. So it was not long for them at all. Changing oil and everything were many people, particularly the privateers. I left the stage. I made a couple of 100 meters and I heard a knocking noise coming from the engine. I had some oil with me, so I put it all in, but it was still not enough. And then the engine died about 20 kilometers before here at Tantan. A friend then pushed me here, and we're going to have to change the engine. A 4-hour job, and we're not going to sleep tonight. So then, old engine out. New engine out of the bag. It won't stay clean for long before it goes in. And even Richard Sankt had to be woken from his slumber. And likewise so did Fabrizio Mioni, startled almost for a moment. Even he didn't want to get out of bed. And 4 hours later, they did manage to get the new engine in and started. So then, today's monstrous stage from Tantan to Zurat, from Morocco into Mauritania, that long road section very, very early this morning, before a little bit of breakfast before getting underway for the 370-kilometre stage, right down into the north of Zurat itself. So then, once the crews had travelled that 353 kilometres of road section, they arrived for a short break at which they were given breakfast, but many just crashed out there and then to try and recuperate a bit more sleep. And there's nothing like a sunrise in the middle of the desert, and that's exactly what the riders saw, even though, of course, they probably didn't have much time to appreciate it. Nani Roma and Fabrizio Mioni tucked into their breakfast to try and stock up on the energy levels. The border from Morocco to Mauritania, and everybody had to get their passport out. However, it was Fabrizio Mioni who really found the legs of the brand new twin-cylinder KTM. Big heavy bike, but it's got loads of grunts and loads of power. Number one, the reigning Dakar champion, was really chucking it about, really in his element. And once he got to the finish, past the flying finish, he was exultant, he was ecstatic, because he knew that he'd done a good time. And that's exactly what he did. He had eventually won the stage by 7 minutes and 5 seconds ahead of the rest. Nani Roma, third on the stage today, but second overall in the Dakar. Very, very fast. He likened it to a motorway, although he did throttle off a little once he saw that Mioni had gone past and into the distance. He just couldn't keep up, so he let him go. De Gavado from Chile, second on the stage, best of the rest behind Mioni. And De Gavado, third overall, just some 3.5 minutes back of Mioni in the overall classification. But for Britain's Mike Extant, it was not a good day. He had an electrical problem and was stuck on the side of the stage and could only try and get the thing started. However, he crossed some wires, red touched blue and blue touched red, and the inevitable just happened. He looked down into the base of his Husserberg, and what can you do when you're in the middle of the desert? Alfie Cox, fourth on the stage, but unfortunately 50 kilometres before the end he had a puncture and he arrived at the finish with the rear in tatters. And he reckoned that Mioni was doing some 190 kilometres an hour in places. Alfie just called it a desert motorway. Jordi Arcaron, seventh on the stage today, and fifth overall behind Alfie Cox. Cox is just 6 minutes off the lead overall. Arcaron's, he got caught in another's dust and so took another route, but unfortunately he went offline by about 2 kilometres. Esteve Puyol on his Repsol KTM, 11th on the stage and 6th overall. Richard Sankt, 5th on the stage for him. Still suffering, of course, from that 14.5-minute penalty, which leaves him 24, nearly 25 minutes off the overall lead. Giovanni Sala, number 7, teammate to the winner of the stage, Fabrizio Mioni. Didn't really get into his stride as much as Mioni did. Sala 6th on the stage. Kari Tiernan, he lost his voice by the time he got to the finish, and he actually said, maybe I'm a little too heavy for the single-cylinder machine. Maybe I should have a crack at the twin. He is a big rider, is Tiernan. Eric Bernard was next on the stage. Bernard 12th on the stage, ironically, for the number 12 rider. Christophe Meyer, the number 87 rider, is saying the marathon stage is very difficult for us because this is just a 650 XR. We slept for a couple of hours last night, and we had dinner last night at about 8 o'clock, and I went to sleep at 9:30. Then we arrive at the border, had another quick bit of sleep, but it was so cold we hardly had a chance to catch up. The top teams were prepared for the cold in these conditions, and I think it's a stage where the privateer is going to find it very, very difficult. This is a stage Yes, but I think it's very dangerous, though, that the cars are starting right behind us. They will be catching us very, very soon. So then, the stage today, Mioni winning by 7 minutes from De Gavado, Roma and Cox only a second splitting them, and then Richard Sankt in 5th. Overall, Mioni at the front from Roma, De Gavado, Cox in 4th, and Arcaron's quite a way back in 5th. Fabrizio Mioni saying this was maybe the last really good stage for my bike. However, if I had even a little more power, I could have gone even quicker, but it was okay for me. Today, I was very quick in any case, but I had to be careful because that sort of stage can also be very, very dangerous.
Va molto veloce, ma sugli ostacoli poi è anche vero che ci si arriva talmente forte può essere pericoloso.
La etapa muy rápida.
Colin De Gavado saying that was the fastest stage of the rally. Not really very difficult, but very dangerous, because if we wanted to go fast, we had to just go flat out, of course, with the twins, on full power, because Fabrizio's bike is just so much faster.
La moto anduvo maravilla y seguimos adelante otro día más.
Nanny Roma saying,
yo estoy contento de cómo ha ido más o menos porque era una
I think we couldn't follow Mioni with his twin. I was at 150, maybe 160 kilometers an hour. That's chopping out about 100 mile an hour maximum. He passed us before the first control point, after which I was 1 or 2 minutes behind him. But after, I just throttled off a little because I didn't want to take a risk. This is really the only stage like this on the entire rally.
Prefiero esto que no romper el motor y que pasen cosas más graves, porque hoy si hubiéramos intentado seguir su ritmo hubiéramos roto seguro. Era todo rápido, era toda una pista única a fondo, por lo tanto prefiero estar aquí bien y con la moto entera.
About 50 k's from the finish, I felt the back end go, and shit, I wanted to really be on me, Carlos and Nani today, because I don't need them to take any more time out of me, and it looks like they've taken about 30 seconds to a minute out of me, and I just got onto their tail about 70 k's from home and thought, okay, I'll sit with them to the finish, and the moose blew, so I hope I've had my bad luck for this Dakar.
Quick stage though.
It was unbelievable. I mean, it was like a motorway, a desert highway, and obviously the twin just came to its fall today, and I mean, we had a very bad headwind, and on the single maximum about 155, 160, and I'm almost sure he was pulling at least 190 along there. And the problem is he's also, I thought he'd pull a lot more time than us, so we're actually lucky he didn't take 10 minutes out of us today. But still a long race, and we have to put the pressure on every day. Maybe he can make a mistake.
Were you tired after the small amount of sleep you had last night?
Yeah, it was a bit stupid. I mean, we arrived, the front runners got there at 4 o'clock in the morning. I mean, we put our heads down just on the ground. I mean, we had no pillows, we were frozen, and we tried to get an hour or two sleep, but it's difficult when you're cold, and woke up at about just before 7, had some breakfast, and then went to the start at 8. So I think it was just crazy myself, but if that's what they think adventure's all about, we did it.
So then, today's stage from Zurat down to Attar. Short liaison of some 9 kilometers out of the town, and then going pretty well south to the first control point, en route to completing your 383 kilometer stage, arriving a matter of 4 kilometers before the bivouac at Attar itself. Well, the motorbikes were flying high in more ways than one as Jordi Arcarons was reaching for the skies, as all of the KTM team were tackling the dunes as a whole. Some of them, though, were roostering their mate. Alfie Cox just cresting the dune and appearing through the dust like a ghost. But of course, the problems were now appearing for the V-twin KTMs. Giovanni Sala, he actually led until the refueling point, but as you can see, ran into trouble. It can happen to even the pros. Some of the most spectacular scenery of the Dakar is now really coming to the fore, although of course they haven't got a minute to look. Kari Tiernan, first on the stage, 9th overall. He said it was easier to go quicker from behind. Remember that he had a bad day yesterday when he destroyed the front wheel. And remember what happened to Tiernan last year. He lost an enormous amount of time, some 9 or 10 hours before the rest day, and he was given carte blanche to really flat chat it to the end. That's exactly what he's done today. And of course he managed to travel through the stage without too much dust. Fabrizio Mioni though, defending Dakar champion, 8th on the stage and first overall with a lead of some 1 minute and 53 seconds. He said that it really wasn't a bad day for him at all, especially after the refueling points. Alfie Cox, this is images of Alfie just after he had taken an enormous tumble. He got caught up in some dust on a flat bit, got unsighted in the dust, hit a rock with the rear wheel, and he just went out the front door. Look at the damage on the right-hand side of the machine.
Jean Samaritain encore. Oui, encore une fois.
Jean Brucy at the refueling point saying, well, maybe I'm just a Samaritan all of the time, trying to help out Alfie. By the grace of God, Alfie was uninjured, although he punctured the 2 fuel tanks on the right-hand side. And from then on in, Alfie had fuel leaking into his right boot. And by the time he got to the finish, he said it was burning. Very, very lucky boy. For the others, though, it was rocks, rocks all of the way. People are now getting weary, they're getting tired. The temperature today at the finish was well over 40 degrees Celsius. However, later in the stage, things were not good for Brucy. Very odd situation. Here we have Eric Bernard, a friend of Brucy, arriving on the scene literally seconds after he'd fallen, as you can see at kilometre 239. And the TV crew first on the scene. He says, do you remember anything?
Non, pas trop. Si c'est pas ce qui s'est passé.
And you don't need a translation for what the answer is.
Fort.
He says, I fell.
Très fort à mon avis.
And the standard questions being made for when somebody has had a big concussion. Where are you and what day it is? And the true signs being shown. No idea. Well, on boards with number 168, Luca Arentini. He says this is a difficult stage today because there are many, many dunes, and we have to find our way through the dunes with the best places to jump through them. This morning I started in 60th position overall, and there are a lot of tracks for me to follow, particularly on the stage at the moment. De Gavado, keep an eye on him. He was 6th on the stage and he's now 2nd overall, only to Mioni. He pushed very, very hard indeed, but he had wise words at the finish. He said, I said, are you happy? And he said, well, happy is a dangerous word. Happy is a word you should use at Dakar. He said, I prefer to use the word calm and concentrated. Nani Roma, 7th on the stage, 3rd overall. Of course, last time he came to Attar, he was in the hospital, so he is just happy and counting his lucky chickens. Jordi Arcaron's 2nd on the stage and 4th overall, 8.5 minutes exactly behind Mioni in the overall standings after well over 16 hours of running so far, as we now are coming into the rest day. It's all very close at the top. Esteve Puyol, 3rd on the stage today, leaves him 6th overall behind his teammate. And even Richard Sankt was getting stuck at the top of the dunes, proving that even the world's best are having trouble on the Dakar. So therefore, if even the pros are having trouble, well, what about some of the rookies? Well, Eric Verhoef going over the top of that dune. He's not a rookie. He actually won his first ever entry to the Dakar back in 1988. He took a big break before returning, and then he's taken another break before returning this year. Others, though, were enjoying life jumping for joy. At the finish, PG Lundmark was happy that he got to the finish. He's running a temperature of some 39 degrees. He's taken some pills, although he's not feeling too well. There's the stage then. Finland's Kari Tiernen winning 3 minutes ahead of Arcarons, Esteve Pujol, Sala and Sankt. And overall, Italian Mioni has that lead of 1 minute and 53 seconds, which is next to nothing in Dakar terms, ahead of De Gavado and Roma. So Kari Tiernen saying it's of course easy to follow the others in the dunes because you just have to follow their tracks in the sand. I was alone, and of course where there was no dust, it was good for me, whereas the others had a lot. It was easy for me, and then at the end of the stage I really gave it the turbo, as if I was doing a motocross.
Nautti ajamisesta. Oli ihan kiva ja kun crossia olisi ajanut tuossa lopussa.
Sì, una buona giornata.
Fabrizio saying, not a bad day. It was easy on the first part, but I was careful. We were together, but when you lead, you have to, of course, then make all of the navigation. In the second part, after the refueling, Carlo De Gavado just went very, very fast. And I followed him, but there was a lot of dust, so it was then harder for me.
Carlo ha accelerato al massimo e io l'ho seguito fino all'arrivo con tantissima polvere e comunque va bene così, per il momento è tutto sotto controllo, perfetto.
I was just unlucky, man. I was behind Carlo this morning, and you know how you get patches of dust as you go along, and next minute it was like night time and there was one stone and it hit the back wheel, just set the bike off and down I went. But I fell in the stones, you see. So it just destroyed everything. I mean, broke both petrol tanks, exhaust is flattened, I've had no power. But what I had to do, I've had to disconnect each tank to save fuel. Use the leaking ones, connect up the ones that have got fuel in to try and make it. I mean, it's been a day of adventure, I tell you.
The massive stage was taking no prisoners. Here this motorcyclist calling to his colleague saying, "Hey, do you need some help?" And he certainly does.
It's okay?
But for Satoshi, it was all on his own, as the others helped each other.
Tu l'as noyé! Oh, bah,
he says, don't rev it too much, don't rev it too much, you'll use all of the gas. Yesterday being a particularly difficult day for fuel consumption, Satoshi just said it was very hot and very difficult. French helping Spanish, young helping old.
J'ai cliqué peut-être 50 fois, moi, depuis tout à l'heure, j'en peux plus. Elle est pas loin, là. Non? Pas impressionnant.
It's a long way from here, he says.
Viens m'aider, ma poule!
This motorcyclist just says, will somebody please come and help me? But for Satoshi, he says, I have to get over the dunes. This motorcyclist saying it's impossible not to help everybody. We just don't have the strength to help everybody. After a while, our solidarity just gets exhausted, and then there is nothing. But for Satoshi, the dune won. And as the sun went down over the horizon on Attar in Mauritania, the end of 383 kilometers was enormous, but not for Satoshi Tamura. He eventually arrived at the finish late last night, and of course he could only express his feelings through an electronic translator. And if anybody deserves to get to Dakar, it is he. Many people venturing over the dunes late into the evening. We are the gladiators, he says, of the third millennium. But maybe by the end of the contest, Julius Caesar gives us a thumbs down. This rider saying, it's really, really difficult. But I must arrive at Dakar. The cameraman says you're from Togo?
J'ai quitté, il était 9h, il y avait au moins 15 voitures qui ont quitté avant moi. Parce que j'ai fait la mécanique toute la nuit. Donc dès que je rentre au bivouac ce soir.
And once I get to the bivouac, I'm going to have to change the engine because the piston and the valves are touching each other. So I've still got a long day ahead of me. It certainly was a long day. The will of the human being certainly at times begins to even waver. If you think that the desert is a lonely place during the day, what about being in the desert during the night? What's he going to do? He says, I'm just going to go fast, fast, fast. I'm going to go first gear, second gear, third gear, and try and get over the dune. But once more, it was the dune that won. Well, we have seen the stories, we have seen the pictures of many, many people retiring from the Dakar. We know about the people, but just what happens to the nuts and bolts, the metal and the carbon fibre of the bikes once the rally is over? Well, this official from TSO saying this bike has obviously been stopped here on the stage at 132 kilometres, and it was picked up by the broom wagon, as we call it, between Ozazat and Tantan. And then it's arrived here. We organised many points on the rally where we can take the bikes back to France, and we had 17 motorbikes going on the first evacuation. And now we have a truck going back to Paris here. But also, in a couple of days, we collect the bikes from Tantan to Zurat, and then from Zurat to Attar, and on the rest day, we use a plane. And everything will go there to Roissy-Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris. The organisation has worked very, very hard to help the motorcyclist. And for some years, sometimes we have left some behind, but I can surely say now that we collect more and more every year, and so there are less and less kept behind. On the plane, and back to Paris they go. Well, today's stage is of exactly 0 kilometres, the rest day for the Dakar. Well, the KTM team, they are sure to win the Dakar in 2002. They occupy all of the top 10 places in the overall standings in the motorcycle section, with Italian Fabrizio Mioni leading ahead of Carlo De Gavado, Nanni Roma in third, Jordi Arcarons and Alfie Cox. The nearest non-KTM rider is PG Lundmark. He's in 11th with his BMW. However, for the defending champion Mioni, he says, I think I'm going to control the race with all of my colleagues of KTM, but I don't know exactly the potential of my V-twin bike. I'll try to limit the time that I'm on full power, because my bike is quicker, but it's heavy and it's a little more dangerous than the singles. I'll try to reduce the moments at which I am travelling at top speed and just try to stay around my teammates.
Permette tanto, ma è piuttosto impegnativa e tutto sommato pericolosa. Quindi bisogna ridurre al minimo i tempi dove si va al massimo.
In the team though, Carlo De Gavado, he's right up behind Mioni by only 1 minute and 53 seconds. But Alfie Cox, The birthday boy is in 5th.
Then yesterday, yes, was very beautiful in the dunes. I mean, that section through Mauritania is always the nicest section, but then to have the very fast piece coming home, you know, very dusty at the moment. So I believe that the first part of the Dakar was only a test to see if everything was okay, the material was okay, are the riders strong, what is everybody doing? And for me, it's been the best Dakar up till now, because I've been in the best position. Going into Morocco from Europe, I was always sometimes 6-7 minutes behind. This time I was only within 2 minutes. So for me, it's been the best Dakar. But I think the race is only going to start now.
However, others in the KTM team may be still in the rally, but they've got no chance of winning the event. Remember what happened a couple of days ago to Finland's Kari Tiernen. He lost an enormous amount of time. He's nearly an hour back. But here he says, after the rest day, I will try to make some good stages and try to be in the top 10. Maybe reach inside the top 5. We'll wait and see what happens. 70% of the stages remaining are exactly up my street, and my type of riding style is suited to them. It's still open. The others can still have technical problems. Be sure to count on that.
Kyllä tässä vielä voi mitä vaan tapahtua. On ennenkin käynyt.
And what about the semi-official works riders? Look at Paulo Marquez. He is in 12th position overall with his KTM single-cylinder machine. But also PG Lundmark. He can still win a stage on his BMW. He's got 1,600 people financially assisting his effort from back home in Sweden.
Tastes like hell.
Well, today's stage, a looping stage out of Attar, a sailing around the boys stage. And after the first 100 kilometres over familiar ground, the stage covers new ground across many ergs. However, no GPS navigation today, nothing but a map and a compass. And if you're caught using your GPS, you'll get a large time penalty. Out on the stage with Luis Azevedo, the Brazilian rider on his Honda. Continuing along, he says the Paris-Dakar, it's just pure adrenaline. We go, let's keep going. It's Brazil in the Dakar. It's big Luis Azevedo in the Dakar. I just love it all. Out there on the stage, though, all of the KTM crew were going every which way but forward at times, retracing their tracks, going round and round in circles, or even round and round the mulberry bush. The Repsol KTM squad teaming up together, and that is a position and a place in the middle of the desert where Giovanni Sala is really going to struggle with the twin-cylinder machine. The stunning shots over the flat plains, but soon, once more, they got into the dunes. And with the KTMs filling the top 10 at the beginning of the day, they all teamed up, and once more the V-twin got the better of Fabrizio Mioni, the overall leader of the 2002 Dakar. Jordi Arcaron's his front wheel just disappearing into the talcum powder soft dunes, and the former winner getting back on its two wheels. Well, initially there were 6 KTMs running together as they passed an obligatory point on the route where the organisers could trace their progress. Richard Sank leading the field at this particular point. And Kari Tiernen in the yellow, remember that he started first on the stage after having won the stage into Attar a couple of days ago. Therefore, his advantage had been null and void. But look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and then 9. All of the KTM crew travelling as one. However, 10th on the stage today, finishing only 13 minutes back of the eventual winner, was Spaniard Vicente Escuda, riding on his KTM. He arrived at the finish with the officials soon to check the GPS system. Now, they do actually still carry the GPS system for a safety reason. Obviously, if they get lost, they can punch in a special code, and if the organisers see that you've put in that safety code, then you get a 6-hour penalty. And the organisers checking here and finding out that that code had just been put in. And Vincent saying, well, I did not attend the riders' briefing last night. I didn't go to it, and of course I then got the code and I put it straight in this morning. It's not been a deliberate action of mine, more of a pure accident. Bad day for Sweden's PG Lundmark on his BMW Twin. Not exactly a works bike, but works pieces that he has constructed. Unfortunately, just a few kilometres into the stage, the engine cried enough, and PG is out. Eric Bernard finished 12th on the stage today. The Frenchman, once more continuing on so well, he's easily inside the top 10. He's got a nice buffer of some 30 minutes to the person behind him. However, winner of the stage today was Alfie Cox, steaming through the dunes, had a new engine fitted yesterday, says that it's really pulling and going on song, even though he went head over heels over a very soft dune and he bent the back of the bike. He was very lucky indeed to get away with it. Fabrizio Mioni, though, continues to lead the Paris-Dakar in the motorcycle section. He said the bike was difficult to ride for a while, and then he was following the others, caught in a lot of dust, particularly at a quick part, and he decided just to throttle off. Cox then winning the stage by only 6 seconds from Mioni. Roma was third today. De Gavado, he had a big tumble, but he was fourth, and Richard Sanks for France was fifth. Mioni leads overall from Nani Roma by just 3 minutes and 21 seconds. De Gavado third. Cox up to fourth now. Archeron's fifth.
Yeah, it was a very good stage today. I mean, you know, I was in the best position to win the stage, and the nice thing about it, I've come back to fourth overall. And you know, for a birthday present to win the stage today was very good. And the nicest thing that I'm happy about is that you know, the factory riders win the KTM mini bike, and it's my son's 4th birthday next month, and I will give him a mini bike for his birthday, so I'm more happy about that.
Fabrizio Mioni saying, my bike was not easy to ride with a full tank of fuel at the start, in the big stones and in the soft sand as well. It was really very hard. In the first part, I was very tired because of the winding road, and then I just found it too hard to try and catch the others who were in front of me on the road.
Bella fatica per cercare di recuperare terreno sugli altri, però poi piano piano ce l'ho fatta, ho recuperato sugli altri, sono anche riuscito a entrare per primo nella pista veloce finale, perché c'era la polvere e era importante per guadagnare qualche secondo in una gara che si fa sempre più tirata.
Carlo De Gavado saying at the 250 kilometre point I was following Jordi Archerons, and I hit a big stone which was in front of me. I then hit another stone with my front wheel. I crashed and the bike fell on me, my shoulder and also my arm. I certainly feel the pain now. It's all the way down my left side.
Para encontrar el cap, pero después ya fue muy rápido, por un camino antiguo.
Well, it's been a bad day for PG Lundmark, but we've always seen PG with his rucksack.
Normally it's a big secret, this, but I can show it just for you. I have for night driving goggles with clear lens. Daytime you're driving with the gray lens, so that's the difference. And in night times, evenings, in the liaison and early mornings, I have warm for my hands. Then I have a CD player, blues music.
You listen to music when you're riding?
No, not when I'm riding. And when it's cold, it's good to have this one here. Yeah. And this is good. Telephone, good to have. And finally, a beer for the car. I'm going to drink it on the podium. Thank you very much. All right.
Hey, yes, very are for PG Lundmark. We'll miss you till next year. So then, today's stage going further south once more from Attar into Tajika, a short road section. But then look at this, 467 kilometers. That's nearly 290 miles in length. It gets longer, it gets hotter, and it gets drier and dustier. And not only does it get hotter and drier and dustier, but the landscape just gets more and more stunning. Right then, Kari Tiernan, number 8, in the yellow with his Deutsche Post KTM. He started 9th on the road today. However, the organisers introduced a new 2-minute rule between each rider, which meant that he started 18 minutes behind the leader. First of all, though, he picked off Jordi Arcarons. Arcarons starting some 8 minutes ahead of him. Then they went through the dunes, the stunning dunes, but he certainly didn't have time to enjoy the view. The Flying Finn, the 7-time Enduro World Champion, then picked off the overall leader. My apologies, Giovanni Sala on the V-twin. Then he did pick off Fabrizio Mioni, the leader of the event. By now he had made up some 16 minutes on the overall leader. He was fighting hard because he had to overcome a deficit of some 57 minutes after a wheel failure a couple of days ago. However, it was not easy riding for Tiernan all of the way. Just look, it could even happen to the best. At least he could have a bit of a laugh about it. However, he just went too fast, too early, and the rear tyre cried enough. He had to replace the mousse in the rear tyre with a tube, and he lost all of that time that he had gained. Overall, he lost some 31 minutes, and he was back in the clutches of the rest of his teammates. His plan of going hell for leather had worked initially, but it was a very, very long stage, and as always, nature has the final say. In the stage, though, Nanni Roma, he managed to take time on the overall leader, Fabrizio Mioni, today. He just chipped away little by little, and it's getting very, very close at the top of the overall standings. Roma is now only 1 minute and 26 seconds back of Mioni in the overall standings. It's very, very close. Stay tuned. Meanwhile, Carlo Dugavado, he won the stage today, quickest at over 6.5 hours of running. Think about that, ladies and gentlemen. These are the world's best on the planet's toughest stages. And even Dugavado had to slow down for some flying camels. So Fabrizio Mioni on the V-twin in the sand. He may have had the heaviest motorcycle out there along with his teammate Giovanni Sala, but he just seemed to keep the thing flying over the dunes, and he just seems to keep that lead of some 1 minute and 26 seconds. To this man here, number 9, with his Repsol KTM, Nanni Roma. The suspension was working overtime with his single-cylinder machine. He was pushing it to the max. Roma was second on the stage, second overall, as I said. Dakar may not be far away, but my goodness me, it is close. Alfie Cox of South Africa, he just took pity on the privateers running behind him. He said that was one of the most hardest stages I've ever done. He had trouble with his goggles. He reckons he had a bit of butter on his fingers this morning and he tried to wipe these goggles clean and all he did was just smear his breakfast butter all over his goggles. On to Jordi Arcarons, number 2. Arcarons, he finished 7th today, but he is 5th overall behind Cox. Richard Sankt just seems to not have the fire in his heart after he was given those speeding time penalties after speeding through a village. Earlier in the rally, Richard Sankt now 6th overall. Isidre Esteve Puyol, 7th overall, some 32 minutes back. And it can even happen to the world's best. Searing temperatures, soft sand, just like talcum powder, and then the engine dies. Andrea Meyer, the lady rider from Germany. It's her mother's birthday today, so she's going to use our television pictures to sing happy birthday. So then, Carlo De Gavado victorious once more by just under 2 minutes from Roma. Mioni a little further back, Sankt, and then Cox. Overall, though, Mioni's lead, look at it, very slender, 1 minute 26, but look at De Gavado, he could still do it, Cox, and then Arcarons. Winner De Gavado saying a very, very hard stage for us. It was a mix of all types of difficulties in the stage. Bit of rock, some sand, some hard surfaces and some camel grass. We were very fast, but we knew the stage from when we did it 3 years ago. But the bike was fine and it went very, very well for me today. Nani Roma saying this is the most difficult stage of this year's Dakar. We had a good flow following Mioni, who was in front. I tried to overtake him sometimes, but it was just impossible. And then during the stage I actually hit a tree, but fortunately nothing was damaged. I maybe just caught my nose though.
Estamos en forma, hemos sacado bastantes minutos a los pilotos de atrás y bueno, contento, la moto va bien y yo también tengo un pequeño rasguño, pero bien, contento.
For overall leader Mioni saying that was the most tiring stage of the rally, very, very tiring. We had sand, we had some camel grass in there. The tracks were very small and twisty, and being in front it was even harder for me, more so on this bike than the other single cylinder and lighter machines.
Ho cercato di tenere sempre un buon ritmo perché credo che anche gli altri, pur se hanno delle moto più piccole, credo che anche gli altri siano al limite, sono anche gli altri molto affaticati, vuol dire che comunque nonostante la grande moto sono ben allenato e quindi riesco a resistere agli attacchi degli altri.
But the Nissan had four-wheel drive, and of course for the motorcycles it was just one-wheel drive on the hottest day of the Dakar so far. The dunes were as soft as talcum powder, and it was a stage of some 467 kilometers in length.
Le démarreur électrique, c'est le bouton magique.
He says the electric starter, it's just a magic button, but without power from the battery, it won't work. So you've got to use the power of your muscles instead. A friendly rival helping him out, and he says, at times you really have got to swear. So he swears. Other people were having starting trouble. And there's nothing like trying to start a hot engine in the middle of Mauritania during the height of the day. On either sides of the dune, a similar problem. But as always, there is light at the end of a tunnel, and off they go. For Wikus van der Venter on his quad, he leads the quad class. The South African's humour as dry as the landscape. However, once the sun had gone down and into the darkness, the locals lit their campfires and still people was trickling into the bivouac. Says I've lost 3 hours in the dunes after I ran out of petrol. It's nothing though, we're going to keep going, we're going on. It's all part of the fun.
What happened? What did you do?
Oh, just going slow. Just going very slow.
Hard start?
Very hard. I think I would never come to petrol CP2. So far away.
Swede Annie Seal arriving at 3 o'clock in the morning. This finish line official saying we've seen just half of the cars through, only 41 of the 75 out there. We've had 10 of the 30 trucks and we've had 91 of the 117 motorcycles that left the start.
Les lunettes, ils sont pas arrivés. On va essayer d'arriver. Allez, bye.
What have we done wrong for such a punishment? He says as he eventually arrives in the bivouac. The motorcyclist who we saw earlier having problems starting. And soon he tucks into a bit of fodder. He says, this, you see, it is a luxury to even get to the finish line. Cheers. He certainly deserved it because by now it was the early hours, 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning.
Les blaireaux, les blaireaux, les blaireaux, ouh, ah, les blaireaux, les blaireaux, les blaireaux, ouh, ah, oh, les blaireaux, les blaireaux, ouais. Eh ben là, avouez qu'au niveau des paroles...
La voix est travaillée, on remarquerait que...
C'est la voix de Johnny.
C'est la voix de Johnny après un concert.
À que les blaireaux, à que les blaireaux.
La tappa è massacrante.
This Italian motorcyclist saying this stage has nearly killed me. It's now so hard to ride at night, and I've got still my tinted lenses in my goggles, and I've lost my bum bag, so I'm going to try and rest and try to recover. Problems for Laurent Bourgnon though, replacing a left front drive shaft. He says that we have been here now for some 4 hours. We've even been for a walk because there's a small village over there. A herd of cows have walked past as the night fell. We've also taken time to look at the stars up there in the sky. And out here in the desert, they're just so bright. His co-driver, though, was having a quick sleep. He says, though, it's beautiful to sleep under the stars. Ennio Cucuracci, he's in his 3rd Dakar, and this was him yesterday saying, I've got 1 kilometre to go to the control point, but I've got to eat. It's getting very, very hard. He's a Belgian, but running as an Italian on his KTM. And he says 3 months before the Dakar, I've stopped smoking, I've stopped drinking, and I've taken up quite a bit of sport, and including the gym. It's going to be okay, though, he says yesterday. I'm better. I feel good. I'm not dead. I'm just tired. Dakar is an old dream for Ennio. as we catch up with him at home.
Le Dakar, c'était un vieux rêve que je
It's
voulais
an old
réaliser
dream
depuis
for
des
me.
années.
I've wanted to do for
Alors, j'ai fait le
many,
Touquet
many a
pendant
year.
l'été, donc je suis arrivé au Touquet où
I
le
did
grand jump
the
qu'il avait fait, c'était,
Touquet Enduros for some testing mileage, but before then, I'd never really jumped off anything higher than even the pavement. So during the Le Touquet, I fell probably 70 times in my first edition, and then the second one, it was a little better, and then I went on to do the Dakar, and after what little experience I had, it was very, very difficult for me.
J'étais complètement inexpérimenté.
I make 5 kilometers and then I fell in the dunes, another 2 kilometers and just bang. The problem is that just once the trucks have been through, the place is like a battlefield.
Le problème, c'est quand les camions sont passés, c'est Verdun. C'est la folie, ils chamboulent le bazar, les tranchées et tout. Dur, dur.
Looking at his trophies on the wall back home, it seems 100,000 miles away. But he says the Dakar, it tells a dream every day. During the month of January, there is no other real type of competition. No football, no Formula One, no tennis. You just look out of the window and you see the rain or the cold, or you watch the television and then you see these crazy people in the sand and under the sun. This is a disaster.
La catastrophe. Ça va, elle a l'air d'être neuve là, hein? On ne dirait pas qu'elle a chuté autant. Hein? Tiens, on dirait qu'elle
Back home, preparing the bike. He says it looks small, but on the rally he says that we are the third millennium gladiators. He's still in the rally and looking forward to Sunday and, of course, to Dakar. Today's stage then from Tajika to Tajik, stage 12 of Dakar 2002, 482 kilometres, that's 299 miles, and by the time the crews arrive into Tajik, 80% of the total route will have been completed when they get there. The white sands of Tajik are the trademark of the bivouac. "18 cars and 14 bikes non-started this morning, telling you just how hard it was in yesterday's stage. The scenery was getting higher and higher, but the desert was getting further and further away for many, but bad day for Finland's Kari Tiernen. He was down the order after he had technical problems earlier in the rally, but he fell hard, the bike landing on top of him, and he has broken his left collarbone, and he's broken his left forearm. There's a few words of swearing in Finnish going on, I can assure you. Meanwhile, Alfie Cox has won his second stage in just 3 days on the Dakar 2002. He started 10 minutes back of the leaders, sped through like a bat out of hell, catching many of the other riders. He said it just felt good for him today, and he decided that it was really now or never for an overall win on the Dakar. More importantly, though, he has gained a position overall. He's from 4th, and he's now 3rd. Fabrizio Mioni leading overall at the beginning of the day by 1 minute 27 seconds. He lost his clutch at the beginning of the day. How difficult is that going to be on a V-twin heavier motorcycle than the singles? Mioni, though, was 3rd in the stage. So who was 2nd? The answer to that question was Spain's Nani Roma. 40 seconds slower through the stage than Alfie Cox, but Roma not without trouble himself. He lost his electronic trip, and by the time he got to the finish, it read 318 kilometres. That was over a 482 kilometre stage. He therefore made a couple of navigational errors, and he just lost a little more time but to Cox, but he's gained a little on Mioni. De Gavado, low on power, human power. He's got a bit of a bug at the moment, bit of a fever. And then he took a wrong direction after a control point, and he lost some 21 minutes. 27 minutes, my apologies. On board with Pierre Quinonero. Remember, he won the opening stage of the rally. He says, I've got a picture of my mother on my motorcycle in front of me, so if I have a problem such as I had yesterday in the sunshine, I just look at her and she gives me strength.
Dans les moments difficiles comme hier, quand j'en ai bavé, on regarde un coup la photo, ça nous fait rigoler. Et puis ça nous redonne du chaud au cœur et on reprend un peu confiance en nous. quoi.
Pierre, though, maybe at times wishing he was back in the muds of La Souterraine, the victor of the opening stage on the 28th of December. Seems a very, very long time ago now. Eric Bernard was the first on the scene to assist Kari Tiernan, but he's going well. He's the leading privateer and he's in 9th position overall. Whilst number 65, Anders Uleval Ester, is inside the top 10, the Norwegian rider on his KTM. So there are the results. Cox from Roma just by 40 seconds, Mioni, Arkerons and Sala. But when you look at the overall results, the difference between the leader Mioni and Roma in second is just 0.05% of the total time that we have covered yet. It's very close.
Bueno, ha sido un día bonito.
I was leading this morning, but then I broke my electronic trip. And I then had to use my spare one. I made 2 or 3 mistakes in navigation, but nothing really important. I tacked a lot because I would like to change something in this rally, because at times it's becoming a little boring. Well, Manny, it certainly doesn't look like that from our point of view. It's very close at the top. Here's Kari Tiernan saying, I don't know exactly what happened, because I looked back after I'd fallen for the reason, but I couldn't see anything that would have made me fall. I think I was not concentrating enough, because from yesterday I've had an upset stomach, and it's in situations such as this, when you're not concentrating to the maximum, that these mistakes happen.
Ei toikaan ollut mikään edes paha paikka. En mä tiedä yhtään, että miten mä olisin kaatunut, koska taju oli pois ekaa kertaa mun uran aikana vähän aikaa. No, mutta ei muuta kuin rautaa vaan käsivarteen ja solariin, niin pääsee taas ajan Enduro MM-sarjaan.
Well, for the second time in not very many days, the winner of the stage in the motorcycle section was once more Alfie Cox, and once more you did it by less than a minute. How'd you time it that fine?
Well, you know, I think the last 2 or 3 days, the organisers have changed. Instead of 1 minute gap leaving, we're leaving 2 minute gaps. So I think to try and make better racing. So today I started 10 minutes behind, so I've been chasing down the leaders. It's been a hell of a dogfight, and for me the day just got better and better as we went along. I got to the refuel, and Roma was the clear lead at the refuel. He actually, I think, had pulled 4 minutes for the overall lead, and he said that the trip master wasn't working so well coming home. And you know, I'm in 4th place, chasing down 3rd, and I left the refuel 2 minutes behind De Guevara, caught him up, and it looked like he wasn't in a hurry. I thought, no, I must take my chance today. Passed him, put my head down, and I've chased Roma and Mioni the whole way to the finish. Won the day. And I'm so happy that 3rd place is looking very, very good for me if nothing goes wrong. Hopefully that fat lady is going to sing for me in Dakar.
One of the best stages you've ever had on the Dakar?
Yeah, I would say, because it wasn't an easy win. You know, normally to come from behind is very easy to win, but this was a really, really physical day. I mean, you had to be 100% strong. I mean, the last 150 kilometers home was a very broken road. Very, very fast, and you know what it does to your hands, and you're just holding on for dear life. And yeah, I would say very good stage today, and one of the better stages, but not too many left, and hopefully we can get to Dakar.
Your hands may have been hurting when you arrived here in the bivouac, but you seem as fit as a butcher's dog. I don't know how you do it.
No, look, you know, luckily in South Africa, you know, we race for 11 months of the year. We don't have a strong winter, so you know, it's one plus against the Europeans. You know, once August comes, it starts getting cold, and you know, my summer starts right away then, and I can train. I normally train 5 days a week, so I can just continue my training, and I don't have to put anything extra into it. And physically, I'm just lucky. I'm in good shape, and yeah, that helps you at the end of the Dakar, as we've seen now. Only the weak will falter as we go along on the Dakar, and the strong will survive and do well at the end.
Well, we look forward to seeing you on the edge of Lacrose, hosting the world's press this morning. On to today's stage, and a very, very difficult one. The looping stage, the second time we've had such a stage in the 2002 Dakar, starting and finishing in Tchit, 422 kilometres. It's a stage, though, without GPS, so it's a case of follow your compass bearing and follow the road book. Certainly a stage for the navigators. In the motorcycle section, on the start line, it was Alfie Cox, all concentrated, along with Nanni Roma. Fabrizio Mioni, the overall leader, and his teammate, Giovanni Sala, from Italy. 0 kilometers on the road book, only another 422 to go. And leaving the start line just a few hundred yards outside of the bivouac, it was thumbs up for Heinz Kinney Gartner and the rest of the KTM crew as he blasted off, for what seemed like some, into oblivion. A good day, though, for Giovanni Sala, jumping for joy on the heavier than the singles, of course, the V-twin KTM. Sala being victorious on the stage by 3 minutes and 45 seconds. However, a monstrous stage being completed in 6 hours and 10 minutes for Sala. Fabrizio Mioni, though, he was second on the stage, proving that it really was a stage for the twins. Mioni, though, he has more importantly put time into Nanni Roma. And remember that the overall standings of last night was 1 minute between the Italian and the Spaniards. And after today, he's put another 2 minutes and 3 seconds into him. It's now 3 minutes and 3 seconds, the difference between first and second overall in the Dakar after nearly 40 hours of running. So Nanni Roma, he said that today was just almost crazy. Just couldn't understand why they did such a stage. The camel grass, he said, will be coming into his dreams this evening. The camel grass here, the small tumps of grass, also causing problems for Alfie Cox, who, as always, was vociferous once he had got to the finish. He said that whoever invented that stage must be mad. Well, the Dakar is certainly a trier for many a rider. He says that he's been up and over, down and round, he's been every way, but almost forward at times. Alfie Cox, though, finishing 5th on the stage today. He's still in 3rd overall. Eric Bernard on board with him.
Quand vous êtes en train de rouler, vous pensez à quoi?
And the question coming from the helicopter.
Déjà, on pense toujours à se concentrer parce que je crois que l'Afrique est plein de pièges. Donc la première chose, c'est bien se concentrer. Et aujourd'hui, notamment, encore plus.
You have to concentrate a great deal on a piece such as this. We've obviously got to focus on the road book today with the navigation. We've got no GPS for the second time in the rally. Eric Bernard doing well in the overall standings on his number 12 machine. He's in 9th position overall. At the refueling, though, you can see that the sandstorm was continuing for all of the riders. The refueling zones being neutralised so that the first one there is not necessarily the first one out and gaining time, but certainly one of the most spectacular fuel stations on planet Earth. At one of the control points, the riders not having time to enjoy the view. Fabrizio Mioni, though, teaming up with Nanni Roma, Alfie Cox and Giovanni Sala out of there. But problems for Carlo Dugavado. He is suffering from food poisoning, and he showed when he fell off the bike, completely damaging it. Jordi Arcarons was in trouble, but nearly in real trouble was Esteve Pujol. Sala getting the first win of 0-2 ahead of his teammate Mioni. Pujol lucky to get away with that incident in 3rd. Roma then in 4th, and Alfie Cox back in 5th. But overall, look at it. It was 1 minute. It's now 3 minutes and 3 seconds. Mioni to Roma. Cox chasing hard in 3rd. Sala at the finish here saying, no problem today. Well, he would say that. He won it. I was fast on the first part. And then I finished first at the refueling point. After that, I did some mistakes, but finally I finished with the others. The bike is okay. Nothing wrong with it at all for me today. Mione here saying the organisation have almost played with us today. The last 40 kilometres in the camel grass were just awful and really very tiring. It's been very, very hard to ride in such conditions, but apart from that, everything has been okay with the motorcycle today.
Sono caduto subito dopo poco alla partenza, dopo 50 km, sempre nell'erba chameau, niente di grave, sono ripartito. Oggi va tutto, per ora tutto bene.
Isidore Esteve Puyol saying it was a very, very hard stage because of the tracks in amongst the very, very high camel grass. I started behind, but I soon joined Jordi Arcarons very quickly. He was my 8-minute man in front of me. I followed him until the refueling point, and then we were together and we felt very strong. I helped him, I stayed with him, he was okay, but then I left him. But then a further 15 k's in, I hit a big tump of camel grass and the bike clipped and I went over it. I was not hurt, but sufficient to stop, and he then went away.
Yeah, today was really a day of human torture, I would say. When I came to the first Dakar in '98, I always thought that Patrick was a little bit of a tough man, and today I tell you what, the most difficult day of the Dakar. We've done, I think, almost more than half the stage just camel grass, and the last 100 kilometers has been second, third gear. It's been so tough. It was a difficult day to make any advance on the next riders, so I think tomorrow, the showdown again tomorrow, I think, but today was just a day to get to the finish and survive the day. It was a very tough day. Patrick is a crazy man, I think, at the end of the day.
Vickers van der Venter, the South African on his third Dakar, has always been at the sharp end of things right from the start. Once into Africa, he's easily been inside the top 40. A spirited performance, considering that the quads are not usually higher up the order. This is so because quads are hard to ride, hard to maintain, leaving a quad in Dakar as a red for Nonema.
Europe wasn't good for me for the weather. I don't like the cold weather, but as soon as we went to Africa, that the weather is very nice for us. I like this, that's what we're used to. And I had a few problems with flats. Otherwise, everything going very well, and front shocks went. I got other new front shocks, so I look forward for the next half of the race to do it.
His quad is an 850 Rotax engine Bombardier out of Canada, a machine not often seen on the Dakar. He's changed the shockers, as he says, and you can see exactly why. Bad news, though, last night, as he was so close and yet so far from the bivouac here in Tajit, as a rear axle cried enough, and he's out of the Dakar. He has, though, another year to think about the Dakar Rally and maybe have a party with Alfie Cox at Dakar next year.
You go to Dakar? Huh? You go to Dakar? Yeah, I will take a plane from Dakar.
See you next year.
Yeah, next year. Thank you. Today is not a good day. First, I got two flats. At one time, I couldn't believe it. And then the real axle bearings went. First the right side. So I was trying, and then the left went. And the chain blade, you know, every time the chain came off. And at the end of the day, there's nothing left at the back. I destroy everything. 30 k's from here. So that's the end of Dakar for this year. Maybe next year.
Leaving the Dakar is never easy. The case for Vickers late last night here in Tajit. We hope to see him soon, next year. To 40 miles an hour. and the wind was not helping Miran Stanovic. His bike was going up in flames.
I stopped and from carburetor, I don't know what happened exactly. I put it down the air filter and tried to start again, and then from airbox came the I don't know, fire, and for a few seconds everything was on fire, you know.
So then, today's stage from Tchit down to Kiffa, the first part of our second marathon stage on the Dakar 2002. 467 kilometers. The Dakar may be 3 days from home, but it's certainly not over yet. And with those weather conditions, anything can happen. And indeed, everything can happen. The organisers playing cat and mouse with the competitors and introducing a secret control point on the stage. And Hubert Auriol saying, well, the CP is... He says there was not a cake to be cut today. Some people weren't at the briefing last night, and they will miss this CP. They will therefore get an hour's penalty, and some others will have to turn back to come here. Then I think we will have some changes in the overall ranking this evening. Well, this was the scene at the bivouac this morning. Nanni Roma and Fabrizio Mioni taking breakfast together. That was before dawn, but into the daylight, and Nanni Roma, who was in second position overall by 3 minutes and 3 seconds to Fabrizio Mioni, was out for the win. It was a difficult stage today, but unfortunately Roma took a wrong turning, as did many throughout today's 467 kilometre stage, and he went up a cul-de-sac. He essentially went up a complete dead end, and the Spaniard, realising his mistake, was beginning to panic. You can see the riding was getting scruffy. It was getting out of shape and out of hand, and you can see the incredibly difficult conditions in which he was tackling with. He was not only upset in his own mind, he was cold. The rain was lashing against his face and against his goggles, and the riding was getting more and more out of hand. And even to an untrained eye, you can see the conditions nigh on impossible for Roma, the Spaniard grappling with what he had left of the Dakar in his hands. The desperation continued. He went up the hill, he went down the hill. He tried to go one way, then the other. And eventually he found a way out, but would it be enough? By now he was in a real state of flux. And though that 3-minute lead of Mioni was certainly going away, but then it went away forever. Poor Nanni Roma had completely lost control. He got into a state of hyperventilating, and he essentially just had a panic attack. The medical crews were with him soon. He returned to the bivouac, and I'm glad to report that he is okay. So then, Fabrizio Mioni, the leader overall going into the day, and by now, unbeknown to him of course, continuing to lead the Dakar. But as you can see, even he was getting lost. So with Mioni getting lost and Roma out of the rally, he had nothing to lose, but he asked the local which way was best to get over a particular escarpment. And unbeknown to that local, he may have just won. Fabrizio Mioni, his second Dakar in a row. Who knows? was not without incident himself, though. That's a big bike, that V-twin KTM, and the 44-year-old lucky to keep control. With the sand getting wet, it may be a bonus that there's not as much dust today, but those rocks are just like ice. Richard Sank, second on the stage today, some 2 minutes and 45 seconds back of Mione. Alfie Cox, he said that the bike was an absolute pig to control with its full fuel tanks. Everybody getting lost, and Esteve Puyol coming in behind Cox, some 40 minutes back of Mione, the winner of the stage. Cox some 29 minutes back of Mione. Pierre Quinareno, remember that the Frenchman, he won the opening stage of the Dakar all the way back on the 28th of December at La Souterraine. The 6 kilometers of mud for him then, very different from today. Eric Bernard continuing to keep inside the top 10. He finished 6th today, whilst Anders Ullevasta from Norway, he was 7th today. Carlo de Gavardo from Chile, he was so tired and so much in pain after yesterday's stage, he decided not to go to the briefing last night. He missed the secret control points and he's taken a massive penalty. Giovanni Sala, he also missed that secret. So as Saeed Al-Hajri left, Jordi Arcarons arrives on the scene, and Gregoire says, have you got any petrol? Jordi, former winner of the Dakar, gets off the bike and looks into the clear aperture on the side of one of the fuel tanks, and he says, yeah, I've got about 25 litres. And Gregoire says, can you give me 10 litres? Now, Gregoire de Mavius' co-driver, Alain Gouneg, in the background there, soon dispensing a little bit of KTM petrol into the Nissan fuel tank. Gregoire asking Jordi his number, because Gregoire didn't quite see his number when he was arriving. What was the, what did you think Jordi thought of that? Gregoire says, super. Many times I've stopped for bikers and it proves that there is a solidarity between us cars and the motorcyclists. When I stopped him, I didn't realise his number, but I do now. So then, Jordi Arcarons giving a sporting favour for Gregoire de Mavius, and soon Gregoire control point, and he's taken another 2-hour penalty. He's well down the order. Mione winning a stage from Sankt, Cox, Esteve Puyol and Quinareno today. Nani Roma back in the bivouac, he said, I was cool this morning and when I left the start, and I think since the start of the race I've had a good rally. This is my first mistake on the entire Dakar this year, and I pay for it in a terrible way. All that I know is that when I saw that I couldn't get through the end of the pass, I felt as if there was a lot of pressure upon me. I got very nervous, and after that I just don't remember.
Pero creo que no, creo que después de haberme perdido, pues sí que me he puesto muy nervioso, buscando la pista, no encontraba para subir y ha sido cuando me he perdido, bueno, que me ha pasado esto, o sea que...
Però pensavo che ne fosse arrivati altri.
It was a very, very difficult stage. We couldn't see anything because of the rain. The stage was extremely slippery, and the tracks on the ruts in the road were very, very hard. Riding in these conditions is just very, very difficult. I'm happy about my result today, and we are just one step closer towards Dakar.
Tomorrow is just the 70 kilometers. Very slow all the way down to the finish, and there's no strategy after that.
Do you know that Di Gavardo missed CP?
You missed one CP?
Yes, first one.
Oh, shit. Okay. So then I'm okay.
So you are okay.
I'm second overall then.
Are you glad now?
Yeah, look, I was a bit worried, eh? When we got to the refuel, I was 15 minutes behind. 17 minutes, and I thought, oh, you know, it's not a problem, because I think I have 40 minutes lead on the fourth man, which is Di Gavardo. But if he missed the CP today...
There was a secret CP?
Yeah, there was one secret CP.
In the overall ranking, after the top factory riders, there are the rest. And one of those is Eric Bernard. He's knocking on the door to all the pros. He says he's had the best rally for a very long time. The top riders have been taking more and more risks, and we've seen the different accidents that have befallen them since the beginning. Their speed has been a lot higher, and before we saw people like Stefan Pederhansel, who was alone ahead, and now there are 6, 7, 8 riders who are all fighting very close. So what is the difference between the top pros and the rest? Well, Anders Ullevasta saying the speed we have to normally ride an enduro at is some 100 kilometers an hour, whereas here it's about 160. My problem is navigation. However, the link between these riders and the Dakar is their competitiveness in their home enduro championships. And here's Eric Verhoef from Holland. He says it's a hard fight. We have to work very, very hard in the evening on the bikes. And therefore, it gives us no time for rest. The only thing that makes the difference between us and the Works KTM riders, because the bikes are the same, is that they have time to recover. Well, they're all on the Dakar to make an impression upon the team managers. Pierre Quinareno, he won the opening stage, and he has certainly made his mark this year. And so has Paulo Marques from Portugal.
Mas com dinheiro, com uma estrutura mais pesada ainda, talvez consiga fazer melhor.
He says, if I have good results here, maybe KTM will give me a better bike for the Tunisia rally. And then, for example, I might be able to get into the top 5.
E se tiver a oportunidade de poder dispor de motor de 700 cm3, como já disse, bastante mais performante, então seria o ideal.
So, keep an eye on these riders, particularly considering as though they are young. So then, today's stage from Kiffer down to Dakar itself, the penultimate stage of the rally, and over from Mauritania into Senegal, that long road section. Look at it, 450 kilometers, slightly to the northwest, and then getting into the stage itself of just over 100 miles, that's 165 kilometers in length. And then a further long road section down to Dakar. And the further west we go and the closer towards the Atlantic Ocean we get, the greener Africa is. The wildlife gets more and more vibrant as well. Early morning though at the start line after that long liaison. Esteve Puyol and Jordi Arcarons catching up with each other after the muddy conditions. But for others, they hardly had time for a chat, just a little bit of breakfast, a welcome bit of energy. Eric Bernard saying, I was afraid of this stage because of the animals on the road, but in the end it was a very nice stage, and we stopped to drink a coffee en route many a time.
It is the most crazy race. It's crazy. And I fall to sleep many times on the road, and I have to stop and sit down for 5 minutes and wait and go 20 kilometers and sit down and wait and go. I was so tired.
And even for the overall leader of the Paris-Dakar rally, Fabrizio Mioni looks at his watch in disbelief and realises that he has to stir himself from his slumber. On the Dakar, there is no pride, even if you are a Works KTM rider or anybody else. You have to grab your sleep when you can. Soon then, into the stage. It was go for everybody. And the man who was fastest through the stage, Bernardo Villa, from Portugal, on his KTM single-cylinder machine, the number 14 rider blasting through and winning it by some 33 seconds in only an hour and 43 minutes. His maiden Paris-Dakar win, and a welcome bit of relief. Now, amazingly, he's in 14th position in the overall standings, exactly on the same time as Dutchman Erik Verhoef. So there'll be a lot to fight for tomorrow in the en masse start on the beach before the final 31 kilometres at La Croze. However, it's not over until the fat lady sings. This was only 3 kilometres into the stage. Esteve Puyol missing a hole in the road and going head over heels and over the motorcycle. Giovanni Sala, his KTM teammate, was first on the scene, moving the motorcycle away from Esteve. And Esteve being asked by the doctor here, are your hands okay? Are your feet okay? He seems pretty compass. And many of the riders saying that the big hole in the road was at the 3 kilometre mark, even though it was marked at the 2 kilometre mark, so it caught many, many people out. Giovanni Sala, though, blasted back from having stopped to assist his teammate, and he was second on the stage, whilst Richard Sankt and he went side by side with Fabrizio Mioni, finishing 5th on the stage, Sankt finishing 3rd on the stage. Richard Sankt and Fabrizio Mioni continued through the green and verdant lands and over the puddles as well, but soon they were their own worst enemies and they got lost. Left or right, forwards or backwards, it can happen to the world's best. Navigation, once more, an essential part of the Dakar Rally. It's not a question of how much power you've got or how fast you go, you've got to use your head. Alfie Cox, though, he finished today's stage in 8th position, but he has confirmed his 2nd position in the overall rankings, even if he did have to ask our cameraman which way it was. Alfie said that he took the day very easy, and he likened it to riding through the game park. Richard Sankt, 3rd overall, making it a Gauloise 2 and 3 in the overall. Whilst Carlos de Gavado struggling with his injured left thumb and his injured left foot. He struggled through the stage, but he continues in 4th overall. Eric Bernard, 8th in the overall standings, while Paul Anders Olavelasta is 9th overall, the Norwegian having a brilliant Dakar rally. Paulo Marques from Portugal, the best Portuguese in the overall rankings. He's 10th overall, whilst Pierre Quinareno, the winner of the opening stage of the rally, is in 11th. So today's results, that is the marathon stage. Mioni, the combined winner, ahead of Richard Sankt. Cox, 3rd in the combined standings. But overall, it's Mioni from Cox, Sankt up to 3rd, de Gavado now 4th, and Esteve Puyol holds 5th. Bernardo Villa saying, someone has just told me that I've won the stage, and I just don't believe it. For me, it's absolutely fabulous. I didn't think that it was possible. I'm really happy. It's marvellous, incredible. It's really wonderful to win a stage of the Dakar.
É magnífico, é uma maravilha. Era tudo o que me faltava, era ganhar uma etapa no Dakar.
Veramente difficile perché
Mioni saying at the end of the stage there was a dry lake, but it was full of water, and to find an ideal route out of it was very hard.
Bisognava trovare il passaggio, la diga.
I was behind Richard, and with him there were no navigational problems. He is very good. I felt as if I have been concentrating very hard today, and I feel okay.
Perché oramai potevo soltanto combinare qualche cavolata e quindi sono stato tranquillo e a posto, tutto è andato per il verso giusto. Ancora abbiamo un po' di chilometri fino a Dakar, però il grosso è fatto.
I think it's only the liaison and Lake Rose tomorrow, you know, and it's been a very tough 5 days, the last 5 days, and I think it was something that I wanted to do, come on the podium, and you know, yesterday unfortunately with Roma, and I have to take the second place. I cannot tell you how happy I am, and things are looking good.
And how was it today?
Yeah, today was a very nice, like riding through the game park. Very nice. We've been going along with Utah, changing like this, but very easy.
There are many other things going on in the Dakar that you may never see, so we're going to let you in on a little secret. These are some of the jets that move the enormous amount of equipment every day from bivouac to bivouac. The air traffic control guiding the aeroplanes in, whilst the quad bikes are used for everything, including injured riders. The Antonovs with their engines high up, specialist in short landing and takeoff, whilst the press office has full air conditioning, literally. The telecommunications keep us in touch with the rest of the outside world as we spread ourselves out. However, when the weather is fine, it's wonderful, but when the weather turns the other way, as it did in Tchit a couple of days ago, it really can be hell on an aeroplane wing. And we even had to move our Hercules C-130, in which we do all of our editing for the TV programme. And in there we also service the equipment and get all of the videotapes up to date for the many TV stations who take the Dakar footage the world over. So today's stage, just outside of Dakar, on the most westernly tip of the continent of Africa. Right on the shores of the Atlantic, next stop over there, well, you get to New York. A short stage of 31 kilometers. Well, as the sandpipers and the seagulls were doing their everyday business, once a year, the Dakar arrives for the short blast down the beachfront and then eventually around the edge of Lac Rose. The field was split into two, so it was a mass start for everybody for an 11-kilometre blast along the beach. Jordi Arcarons battling it out with Giovanni Sala, the single and the twin KTM, having a real bit of fun. But soon the sheer power and the sheer grunt of the KTM got to the fore. Sala initially leading from Richard Sankt. Jordi Arcarons coming through there on his number 2 Repsol KTM. For many, it can be a glory ride, but for others, including Eric Bernard, they were having a go, although they were happy with their overall position. Giovanni Sala, winner of this stage some 12 months ago, and out to prove that the V-twin was a machine not to be underestimated in years to come. Sala blasted to the finish, no problems at all for him today. He'll be having a couple of beers. Meanwhile, the first rookie on the Dakar was Norwegian Pal Anders Olavelasta, whilst Paulo Marques from Portugal won in the production class. He was 15th overall. Pierre Quinareno, he was the winner of the opening stage of the Dakar, and he had a good day as well. Meanwhile, Andrea Meyer on the number 26 KTM, she was the winning lady in the overall standings. Fabrizio Mioni, though, he took it easy today, conscious not to lose. Whilst team boss Heinz Kinnegartner was out there on the stage. He certainly does enjoy himself, like most Austrians. On board with Fabrizio Mioni, though. He says, I've got to pass this red motorcyclist here. I'm a bit afraid of him, though. He could fall off in front of me. I have to take care after another one. He's also looking to be a bit dangerous as well. However, he's only behind me now, and I've only got the finish to think of. And at the finish, all of Senegal seem to be out to congratulate Fabrizio Mioni. He won the 2001 edition, and he has now won the 2002 Dakar Rally. Alfie Cox from South Africa finished in second position, his best ever finish, a fantastic result for him. Whilst third was France's Richard Sankt. It was champagne for everybody. So that's the stage. Sala winning from Marquez, Esteve Puyol, Eric Bernard and Ulavalaster in fifth position. But overall, that's the magic table. Mioni winning from Cox, Sank third, Dugavado of Chile and Esteve Puyol of Spain, fifth.
Una corsa difficilissima quest'anno. Molta è la soddisfazione proprio perché
it was a very difficult rally, but I've had a lot of satisfaction to lead from early on in the event. Also, I've not won because of problems befalling others. The race was very close and it was either 1 or 2 minutes between myself and Nani Roma. My satisfaction is more important because we were flat out all of the time right until yesterday. It's been very, very important for me that it is a genuine win.
La soddisfazione è massima.
Yes. Very happy, really. Wow.
All the moments you say to your family life.
For my family to sit at home, it's a lot of tension, and she's had a hard time, but it's been unbelievable, really. I can't tell you how happy I am. Second place, look, we always want to win, but there can only be one winner, and I believe the best man won the race. Mioni at the moment is very good, and we must come back to beat him.
Oui, c'est vrai, ça partait, je dirais, la course.
Richard Sank saying the race began badly for me with the penalties early on, which I didn't agree with. At the end of the rally, the others made mistakes, which was let me up to the podium. I have a mixed feeling because at the beginning of the rally, I saw a victory impossible after those penalties. So it's everything that I hoped for.
J'ai vu les espoirs de victoire s'envoler. Et puis être sur le podium, c'est quand même quelque chose de sympa, quoi. Je veux dire, c'est jamais gagné d'avance. Et bon, je suis troisième, je suis quand même très content. Ça fait plaisir. Merci beaucoup.
Dakar 2002 Dakar is Fabrizio Mioni's, just as it was some 12 months ago when he was on top of the podium sipping the champagne with his family. He's had tempestuous Dakars, he's had GPS failures, the classic scenes of him laying into the technological problems, but he's a man totally devoted to two wheels. At home in Italy, in the depths of Tuscany, he's working seemingly night and day for his fitness, for one goal and one dream, and he has achieved that dream on the Dakar today.